Chapter 1555. Ha 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 ha, it's all over. Evil Wind King suddenly laughed out loud. The current him was extremely powerful. In the blink of an eye, he was already close to the peak of the Spirit Master realm, and vaguely, there were signs of him breaking through to the Sky Spirit Master. It was extremely terrifying, especially his aura. He was invincible, and in the entire evil realm, he no longer had any opponents. Chen Tianxia's face tensed up. He felt that something was wrong. He stopped attacking and retreated 2 steps with his evil sword. But at this time, Evil Wind King had already rushed over. He struck with both of his hands, and 2 pitch-black tornadoes swept out from his palms, bringing with them a terrifying tearing intent. They tore the entire hall apart and rushed towards Chen Tianxia. Evil Sword Technique. Chen Tianxia bellowed. He raised his sword and slashed horizontally. A ray of sword chi shot out from the sword tip. The sword chi was pitch black, filled with dense evil chi, and in the center of the dense evil chi, there was a terrifying evil soul. It released a mournful roar, as though it wanted to tear everything apart. Boom! The tornado and the sword chi clashed, and immediately exploded. The shock wave caused the surrounding people to retreat, unable to move forward. An Evil Wind King seemed to have been provoked. He roared, and rushed forward with the shockwave. You are not an evil realm being. Although you have mastered the evil arts, you are not pure enough. It is not enough to defeat me. Die here. Chen Tianxia no longer retreated. He quickly waved the pitch-black sword in his hand, releasing all the evil force in his body. The destructive power of the evil sword became denser and denser. There seemed to be countless of evil souls wailing inside the sword tip, causing people's scalps to go numb. In the end, he was the sect leader of the Evil Sword sect. His strength was not just for show, although Evil Wind King was also strong, and had used a secret technique to increase his cultivation, but against Chen Tianxia, he was still unable to gain the upper hand. The situation had become complicated. They originally thought that Evil Wind King would suppress Chen Tianxia, but who knew that the situation was already under Chen Tianxia's control? It's over. The people of the Evil Sword sect were excited. Chen Tianxia snorted. He released all his strength, intending to quickly determine the victor. Do you really think you will win? Evil Wind King's face turned sinister and suddenly shouted. Chen Tianxia was startled. He felt that something was amiss, but then he saw the 3 evil kings who had been watching. All made their moves at the same time, as though they had planned it. Not good! Sect leader, be careful! The people from the Evil Sword sect shouted. However, they were forced back too far by the clash between the Evil Wind King and Chen Tianxia, so they couldn't provide support in time. Chen Tianxia didn't expect these people to be so shameless as to launch a sneak attack at this critical moment. But it was useless to be on guard now, so Chen Tianxia gritted his teeth and went head-on. Upon seeing this, the smile in the fiendish Wind King's eyes grew wider. Ha 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 ha! He laughed loudly and clashed head-on with Chen Tianxia. Their powers intertwined, but even though Evil Wind King had used a magic treasure, his strength seemed to be slightly weaker than Chen Tianxia's. He was directly forced back a few steps, but Chen Tianxia was not in a good condition. The other 3's palms had already landed on his body. Chen Tianxia's body trembled violently, and blood oozed out of the corner of his mouth. He hastily retreated, but by this time, he was already injured, and couldn't even stand stably. Sect Master! The people from the Evil Sword sect rushed forward and surrounded Chen Tianxia. You! Despicable! He actually launched a sneak attack. Shameless! What kind of fair competition was that? From the start, you never intended to have a fair fight. The people from the Evil Sword sect roared in anger. So what? Evil Wind King sneered. We are indeed despicable, shameless. What can you do to us? We really did not intend to have a fair fight, so what can you do? Now that Chen Tianxia is injured, he's even less of a match for us. Initially, we wanted to get rid of Chen Tianxia, but now that you have entered the tiger's mouth, do you still think you can escape? Stay behind. Just as Evil Wind King finished his sentence, the evil people outside rushed in one after another, and the people leading them were Lin Xie and the rest. But at this moment Lin Xie was already bewitched by the four great evil kings of elements, and had long forgotten about the evil sword sect. To Chen Tianxia, naturally, he would not show mercy. It turned out that from the beginning, this was a trap set by Evil Wind King. He never intended to have a clear winner with Chen Tianxia, but he intended to use a duel to confuse Chen Tianxia, and then the other three would make their move and attack Chen Tianxia. Big brother, how do you plan to deal with these people? Evil Fire King laughed and asked. Cripple Chen Tianxia's cultivation, capture him alive, with him. Why worry about the sovereign king city not being controlled by us? Why worry about the evil realm not falling into our hands? The rest? Kill them all. Evil Wind King bellowed. With that said, the evil people pounced forward. The people of the evil sword sect immediately wanted to counterattack, but with their few people, it was impossible for them to escape. Father! Just then, a sobbing voice floated over from afar. Two figures rushed into the hall, one of them was Chen Yiyun, and the other was naturally Su Yun. Towards Chen Yiyun, the four great evil kings of elements were very clear. They wanted to deal with Chen Tianxia, so how could they not investigate? And this Chen Yiyun was also within the scope of their investigation. Yiyun, why are you here? Chen Tianxia was startled and asked anxiously, Aren't you in the sovereign king's city? Why are you here? Leave quickly. Quick! Since you're here, how can you leave? Miss Chen, you're here, as the host, how can I not show my hospitality? Stay a while longer before you leave. Evil Wind King revealed a strange smile, then with a wave of his hand, the surrounding evil people immediately surrounded Chen Yiyun. Stop! Chen Tianxia bellowed. What does sect leader Chen have to teach me? Evil Wind King looked at Chen Tianxia, his eyes filled with ridicule. Isn't the one you want to deal with me? I promise you, I can submit to you, but please let my daughter go. Chen Tianxia shouted. Chen Tianxia was not afraid of anyone, but he was only worried about his daughter's safety. He did not expect Chen Yiyun to actually come here. Truly, man proposes, God disposes. Sect leader. Just then, a voice floated in from outside. Everyone looked over, to see a black-robed man surrounded by evil people, calmly walking into the hall. Seeing this man, Chen Tianxia was stunned for a few seconds and then shouted, Su Yun? Why you are Su Yun? Long time no see, sect leader. Su Yun smiled and walked towards Chen Tianxia as though he did not see him. But his actions stunned the four evil kings of elements. This was completely turning a blind eye to it. Stop! Evil Wind King bellowed, and the evil people around immediately placed their blades and swords on Su Yun's body. Su Yun stopped, his gaze landing on the four evil kings of elements. After a moment, he said indifferently, You guys are from the ultimate martial world, right? Hearing Su Yun's words, the four of their faces changed. Evil Wind King snorted and said, So what? Who are you? I'm from the Evil Sword Sect. Su Yun said. Evil Sword Sect? The four of them looked at each other, and then started laughing. I thought it was some big shot, so it's someone from the Evil Sword Sect. Truly reckless, do you know where this is? Evil Fire King laughed out loud, then stared at Su Yun and bellowed. Isn't this Lin Xie Mountain? If I don't even know where this place is, why would I come here? Su Yun said indifferently. Then since you know where this is, why do you dare to behave atrociously here? Evil Wind King felt that something was wrong and said. Su Yun did not look at him, but said to Chen Tianxia, Sect leader, the myriad heavens is no longer safe. Quickly bring people out of the evil realm, and head towards the true devil realm. I have already sent people to receive you. Su Yun said. I have already received your news, and was originally prepared to leave, But these 4 people used an illusion technique to confuse my evil sword sect people. I have to bring them away. Chen Tianxia said. That's easy. Who are the sect members of the evil sword sect? Su Yun asked. Chen Tianxia pointed to the few evil people beside Su Yun. Su Yun waved his hand, and a gust of qi that was like a cool breeze swept over. The few evil sword sect people trembled. Their originally turbid eyes suddenly became cold. They looked left and right, suddenly shaking off the crowd, and landed beside Chen Tianxia. Master! Are you all right? A few of them exclaimed. I'm fine. Chen Tianxia nodded his head, looked at the few of them strangely, and said, Are you guys all right? We feel very good. Senior brother seems to have used some strange method. We have completely escaped from the control of the evil Wind King. Lin Xie said. Good, very good. Chen Tianxia was overjoyed. Element's expression was extremely ugly. This person easily broke my spell. Although he is from the evil sword sect, I'm afraid he is not a simple person. Evil Wind King said in a low voice. Everyone be careful. Mountain Evil King said. Let's get to him first. Evil Wind King Lin stood up and shouted at Su Yun. Brat, where are you from? Where? I just came from the Wanhua realm, but before that I was always in the immortal world. Su Yun said indifferently. I don't want to waste time with you guys, there's no point in keeping you guys, I'll take care of you first. With that said, Su Yun waved his hand again, and a strange qi drilled out from his 5 fingers, and like threads, it seeped into the bodies of the 4 people. In an instant, the 4 of them felt as if their bones had been pulled out, and they softly fell to the ground, but they did not die, and their cultivation also disappeared without a trace in that instant. What? The surrounding evil people looked at the scene in shock. How could they dare believe what they had just seen? How is this possible? What did Su Yun do? Chen Tianxia was also stunned. As for Chen Yiyun, it was as if her soul had flown away. She stared blankly at the 4 people who had fallen to the ground, and there was only one question in her mind. Su Yun. What realm had he reached? Chapter 1556. Chen Yiyun had thought that Su Yun had some incredible magic treasure to silently kill the disciples guarding the mountain, but that was not the case. What Su Yun relied on was definitely not some powerful magic treasure, but his own unimaginable power. Su Yun, what realm are you currently in? Chen Yiyun's heart was beating wildly as she subconsciously said, Spirit God? Impossible. The existence of Spirit God was almost a legendary existence to the evil realm. However, Su Yun smiled and said, No matter what cultivation I have, I am still that Su Yun, and I will not change. He chose not to say it. He did not want his relationship with Chen Yiyun to be too far apart, or create a barrier. Yiyun, there's no need to ask. Since Su Yun is back, then all the problems will be solved. Chen Tianxia was also pleasantly surprised. At this juncture, Su Yun's return was too timely. The arrogant, despotic, and insufferably arrogant 4 great evil kings of elements were instantly crippled by Su Yun. How could the evil realm people of Lin Xie Mountain dare to fight back against Su Yun? Immediately they fled, surrendered, and this force crumbled in an instant. In the face of absolute strength, any schemes were useless. Chen Tianxia was not a fool. For Su Yun to be able to kill the 4 experts of elements in an instant, his strength was probably beyond his imagination. He would not deliberately ask. He believed that if Su Yun wanted to tell them, he would definitely not hide anything. Everything had been resolved, Lin Xie and the rest had returned to normal, and thanked Su Yun. Su Yun nodded, but did not dare delay any longer, and said to Chen Tianxia, Sect leader, I came here this time because I have an extremely important matter to do, I hope you can help me. Su Yun, you are no longer the same as before, it is not appropriate for you to call me sect leader, just call me Tianxia. As for what request you have, feel free to say it. Chen Tianxia said. It's like this, I'm looking for an extremely evil object, called Chi Xie's heart. I've heard that Chi Xie's heart is the heart of the ancient evil god Chi Xie, and possesses supreme evil force. If I can obtain this object, I will be able to control the source of the evil realm's power. It's just that no one knows where Chi Xie's heart is located. I wonder if sect leader knows? He had the memories of many experts in his mind, and the memories of Chi Xie's heart were also from them. However, there was no record of where Chi Xie's heart was, so Su Yun could only come here to ask. Hearing that, Chen Tianxie sank into deep thought. After a moment, he raised his head and said, Su Yun, I do know where Chi Xie's heart is located, it's just that that place is too dangerous, no one can come out alive. It is said that there were immortals who entered the place where Chi Xie's heart was placed, wanting to snatch it, but they never came out alive. Su Yun, I know your current strength is not ordinary, but you should consider this matter again. Hearing that, Chen Yun also became nervous. She anxiously grabbed Su Yun's arm and said seriously, Su Yun, father will not be wrong, let's discuss this and come up with a plan. There's not enough time. If we don't act now, I'm afraid everything will end. I can't explain it to you too clearly, but I want to tell you, right now, the myriad realms are facing an extremely terrifying crisis. This crisis, for the time being, no one can resolve it. The only thing I can do is think of a way to stop it, but I can't guarantee that I will succeed. Su Yun said seriously and persistently. When the father and daughter heard this, they were both stunned. Chen Tianxie looked at Su Yun in astonishment, and after a long while, he said softly, Is what you said true? It's absolutely true. If we delay any longer, the myriad realms will be hopeless, and everything will end. Su Yun said in a low voice. All right, since you've decided to go, then I'll take you there. Chen Tianxie nodded. Since things had come to this, he could not dissuade him anymore, and looking at Su Yun's expression, it seemed that the matter this time was extremely serious. Chen Yun was also intelligent. She knew that the matter this time was not simple, so she did not say anything else. Yun, you go back first, and follow Lin Xie and the others to the true devil realm. I will bring Su Yun to find Chi Xie's heart, and after we find it, we will meet up with you at the true devil realm. Chen Tianxie said. No, father, no matter what, I will go with you this time. Chen Yun shook her head and refused. Previously, Chen Tianxie had coaxed him like this, but in the end, he only brought a small group of people to the Lin Xie mountain, which made her extremely worried. Now that he was going to find Chi Xie's heart, how could she let her father take the risk alone? Even though she knew that she couldn't change anything as a child, she could only do so much. No, go back immediately. Chen Tianxie shouted in a serious tone. Father, be obedient. Hearing that, Chen Yun's face was filled with grievance. But Su Yun, who was at the side, smiled and said indifferently, Sect leader, don't worry, since Yun wants to go, then go. If anything happens, I will watch over her. Su Yun, this. Chen Tianxie looked troubled. Sect leader, why don't you tell me where Chi Xie's heart is located first? Su Yun asked. Chen Tianxie no longer insisted, and directly revealed the current location of Chi Xie's heart. In fact, to Su Yun, the father and daughter were the most mysterious. Although they occasionally heard of Su Yun's current situation from the rumors from the Beiyang, they did not understand the specifics of Su Yun's situation, nor did they understand how strong he was right now, or what he was involved in the southernmost part of the evil realm. There was a territory that was the burial ground of the people who first opened the evil realm, called the evil graveyard. Some people said that the person buried in the evil graveyard was actually Chi Xie, but many people denied this theory. The evil Qi in the evil graveyard was extremely dense and terrifying. Even the evil realm people could not stand the evil Qi there, so the evil realm people avoided it. There were also people who were not afraid of death, who entered the evil graveyard, hoping to find the treasures, but no one came back alive. However, the matter of the evil graveyard burying the evil realm's heart, Qi Xie's heart, had long spread, because Qi Xie's heart had appeared in the world, but in the end, it disappeared in the evil graveyard. Su Yun locked onto the location of the evil graveyard, waved his hand and released a ball of qi, enveloping the two of them, and then started moving. Chen Tianxie and Chen Yiyun felt the scenery around them suddenly shaking, turning into nothingness. When it calmed down, the surroundings were already dark, without any light, as though they had fallen into the pitch-black sea. Chen Yiyun and Chen Tianxie looked around in the darkness, not knowing where they were, and did not dare to walk around. Chen Tianxie said softly, "Su Yun, are you beside me?" "I am." Su Yun's voice came out from the darkness. "Where is this?" Chen Tianxie asked in confusion. "This is the evil graveyard." With that said, Chen Tianxie was dumbfounded. "What? Evil graveyard? That's impossible. If we were in the evil graveyard, I'm afraid by now, this is indeed the evil graveyard, but you are now enveloped by my qi, isolating the dense evil qi in the evil graveyard, so you are safe." Facing the father and daughter who were in disbelief, Su Yun could only throw out his answer. Hearing that, the father and daughter felt that their thoughts could not keep up with Su Yun's word. This was the evil graveyard? Didn't that mean that the qi of the evil graveyard was completely useless against Su Yun? However, at this moment, the father and daughter discovered that the darkness around them was gradually becoming brighter. In the dense darkness, a gray color slowly appeared, and the gray color became brighter. Finally, everything around them became slightly brighter, and everything on the evil graveyard became clear. The two of them could clearly see everything here. What's going on? Chen Tianxie was confused. Wasn't this place supposed to be wrapped in evil qi? Why didn't there seem to be a trace of evil qi in the surroundings? Su Yun removed the qi that was wrapped around the two of them and walked forward. Seeing that, the two of them immediately followed, only to see that the center of the evil graveyard was continuously overflowing with pitch-black and terrifying evil qi, but the moment the evil qi spread out from the center, it was as if it was attracted by something. When the two of them saw it, they were shocked. All the evil qi had actually rushed into Su Yun's body and was completely absorbed by him. "Su Yun, you are absorbing this evil qi?" Chen Yiyun felt that she could not speak clearly. This evil qi is extremely pure, and is definitely not something that can be emitted by people from the evil realm. I'm afraid that there is an extremely evil object buried in this evil graveyard. If I'm not wrong, it must be Qi Xie's heart. Su Yun's face was filled with joy, and he quickened his pace. Hearing that, the two of them felt their hearts skip a beat. Even now, they still could not digest the shock that Su Yun had brought them. Su Yun walked to the center of the evil graveyard. There were a few rocks piled up, and it looked messy. The ground was pitch black, and not a single blade of grass grew. The evil qi flew out from the cracks in the rocks and drilled into Su Yun's body. Although the evil qi was very strong, to Su Yun it was nothing. He raised his hand and chopped at the rocks, causing them to shatter and the ground to crack. Immediately, a rather dilapidated tomb entrance appeared. Seeing that, Chen Yiyun and Chen Tianxie immediately took a few steps forward. Tomb entrance? There must be the corpse of a supreme expert buried here. Are we going in now? Chen Yiyun raised her eyes and looked at Su Yun. But Su Yun shook his head. There's no need to go in. With that said, he squatted down, grabbed a piece of soil, and lifted it up. While the entire area was lifted up, as though a lid was flipped open, and the tomb that was hidden under the soil was immediately exposed to everyone's eyes. The terrifying evil qi in the tomb was like a tornado that drilled into Su Yun's body, and at the same time, a figure jumped out and pounced towards Su Yun and the rest. Who is it? Who dares to disturb Master's rest? Die! A mournful roar sounded out. Chapter 1557. Hearing that, Chen Tianxie's face changed. Not good, it's a guard, this tomb is guarded by a guard. Leave now. But just as he was shouting, the figure had already closed in. The terrifying killing intent enveloped the three of them. A pitch-black gigantic claw unrestrainedly slashed towards Chen Yun, who was at the front. Yun! Chen Tianxia roared. But it was too late. The claws were extremely fast, and the terrifying evil qi pervaded over. Even though they were evil realm beings, it was hard for them to defend against the dense and suffocating evil qi, as though the evil qi that pervaded over was no longer a gas, but a terrifying wall. Unable to move his limbs, Chen Yun looked to the side. The gigantic evil claw was already in front of her. She wanted to dodge, but it was too late. It's over. Chen Yun's body was trembling. But just at this critical moment, a thick and sturdy arm suddenly extended out from the side. Like lightning, it grabbed the gigantic claw that was tearing towards her. After the evil claw was grabbed, it was as though it was frozen, and could not move forward. Chen Yun was stunned, but Chen Tianxia, who was at the side, was quick, immediately pulling Chen Yun and retreating. That arm was naturally Su Yun's arm. As though it was a breeze, he grabbed the evil claw, then with a light wave, the evil claw immediately flew far away, and landed on the ground. When the three of them looked carefully, they finally saw the owner of the evil claw. The owner of the evil claw was a gigantic evil realm being with a height of 3 meters. His 4 limbs were well developed, and his entire body was enveloped in evil qi. Only his pair of green eyes were exposed. It was ferocious, causing people's hearts to go numb. Is this an evil realm being? Chen Tianxia frowned. Amongst the evil realm beings, there were very few who looked like this. No matter who he is, as the guardian of the tomb, he should know where Qi Xie's heart is. With that said, Su Yun raised his head and looked at the evil realm being, and bellowed, "Tell me, where is Qi Xie's heart? Arrogant person, it's fine if you disturb my master's rest, but you dare to use such a tone to speak to me, you're truly seeking death. Watch me kill you, and accompany my master in death." The evil realm person roared and charged towards Su Yun with his gigantic body. But just at that moment, Su Yun suddenly raised his hand and grabbed towards the evil realm being. The dense ancestral power wrapped around the evil realm being, and actually squeezed his gigantic body, until he became the size of an ant, and was dragged in his palm. The evil realm being spun around in Su Yun's palm, but was unable to escape. "You? What did you do to me?" The evil being was shocked and angry, shouting himself hoarse. "Whether it's you or the master you're protecting, in my eyes, you're no different from ants." Su Yun said coldly, "I'll only give you one chance. Where exactly is Qi Xie's heart? Even if I die, I won't betray master. I won't tell you. You're so strong, and I'm not your match. But if you want to use force to threaten me, don't even think about it." The evil man roared. Hearing that, Su Yun was enraged. He bellowed, "Foolish man, you think I stole Qi Xie's heart just for my own benefit? If not for the 10,000 realms, what is my small Qi Xie's heart in my eyes?" That was the truth. Qi Xie's heart might be considered a treasure in the evil realm, but in the eyes of Su Yun, an ancestor-level person, it could only be said to be an ordinary thing. But there were too few evil things in the 10,000 realms, and the most evil thing was probably Qi Xie's heart. The man thought that Su Yun's words were just arrogant words, until Su Yun stared into the man's eyes, and used the great exquisite technique. Only then did the man realize what was going on. Once the great exquisite technique was unleashed, he felt that his body and mind were all seen through by Su Yun, and all the information hidden in his mind was emptied. After 3 breaths of time, Su Yun casually threw the evil realm being away. The evil realm being fell to the ground, but quickly crawled back up, and angrily rushed towards Su Yun. This person was loyal and devoted to the master of the tomb, and Su Yun could not bear to kill him, so he immediately used a technique, and temporarily removed his cultivation. Without his cultivation, the evil realm being was unable to attack, and Su Yun walked towards the tomb. He closed his eyes, and chanted a strange incantation. The tomb released a bright light, Following that, a corpse flew out from the tomb. The corpse was dressed in a jade gown, with precious treasures hanging all over his body. One look and one could tell that he was not an ordinary cultivator. Seeing that, the evil realm being immediately knelt down and cried bitterly. This subordinate is useless. I am unable to protect the tomb for Master. Today, I allowed these people to desecrate Master. This subordinate is not fit to live in this world. With that said, the evil realm being's body instantly turned into ashes. He had actually committed suicide. Chen Tianxie and Chen Yiyun watched on, sighing. Su Yun did not stop him, although he was loyal, but he was blindly loyal to him. Su Yun's actions had desecrated the master he was protecting, and he did not fulfill his duty, so he could only die to atone for his sins. Even if Su Yun stopped him this time, the next time, he would still seek death. When the corpse flew out, Su Yun grabbed the air, and a light blue gem-like substance immediately flew out from the corpse's chest. The surface of the substance was covered with a large number of spider web-like patterns. The patterns were pitch black, like evil marks. When the gem came out from the corpse, the entire corpse immediately vaporized and disappeared into thin air. Seeing this, Chen Tianxie understood that the reason why the corpse had not rotted yet, and was able to emit such a terrifying evil qi, was all because of this gem. This must be the legendary Qi Xie's heart. He never thought that Su Yun would be able to obtain this legendary treasure so easily. What methods did he use to actually be so capable? Su Yun obtained Qi Xie's heart, stared at the gem for a while, and finally exhaled fiercely, but his face was not relaxed. On the contrary, it was unprecedentedly serious and serious. Sect leader, Yun. You guys should leave now. Quickly head to the true devil realm. There's not much time left. He turned around and said to Chen Yiyun and her father with a serious face. Su Yun, where are you going? Chen Tianxie asked. I'm going to the immortal world. I've already found all the things I need. Now let's see if I can succeed. Su Yun revealed a smile, even though it was a forced smile. Although Chen Yiyun did not understand what Su Yun was doing, she knew that this time, it would definitely be extremely dangerous, and she could not help Su Yun. Brother Yun, I will wait for you in the true devil realm. You must return safely. Chen Yiyun said softly. Su Yun nodded, turned, leaped into the air, and disappeared in front of the two of them. Chen Tianxie sighed slightly, while Chen Yiyun's small hands were tightly clenched together. This time, she did not know when she would be able to see Su Yun again. The world tree heavenly wood contained a strong life force. It was similar to the nature heavenly wood from before. It was able to isolate the evil qi of the ominous sword and expel the evil qi from the ominous sword's sword eye. Evil qi's heart was an evil object. It could absorb the blood of 10,000 spirits' vengeance at the sword eye. Without the blood of vengeance and evil qi, the barrier at the sword eye would collapse. Su Yun rushed to the immortal world as fast as he could. At this moment, the immortal world had also changed. The originally hazy immortal world had become a dark world, and the sky was shrouded by a layer of fog that could not be dispersed. The air was filled with a deathly stillness and coldness, and the immortals in the immortal world had already started to flee, but they did not know what had happened. Su Yun rushed towards the immortal world. However, as he got closer and closer to the immortal world, he saw more and more immortals on the way. These immortals were in a hurry, and every single one of them carried a large number of magic treasure. Many of them were even glowing with colorful light, as if they had been blessed with some sort of spell, and looked to be fully armed. What was going on? A bad premonition filled Su Yun's heart. He frowned, and pushed his speed to the limit. Finally, he was close to the immortal world chaos domain. However, at this moment, it was extremely chaotic, and the immortals seemed to be fighting with each other. Who are you people? Su Yun saw the people gathered in front of the immortal world chaos domain and shouted. However, no one paid attention to him. Everyone's gaze was focused on the battle in front of the immortal world chaos domain. In front of the immortal world chaos domain, a large number of immortals were gathered. Everyone's gazes were focused on it, and it was difficult for them to move away. From time to time, explosions would sound out, and dense immortal chi would spread out. Su-Yun frowned and walked over. When he pushed the crowd aside, he realized that the immortals were attracted by the fierce chi that was leaking out from the sword sheath. They thought that there was a treasure hidden inside the sword sheath, which was why they started fighting. The strength of these immortals was not simple. The weakest was at the peak of the spirit god realm. There were also many existences in the ruins, and there were even a few people from the god-sealed mirror. Towards these people, Su-Yun naturally had nothing to fear. He directly walked towards the center, planning to keep the sword sheath. These immortals were still greedy for benefits at this kind of juncture. He did not care about the lives of these immortals. But the moment he got close, the sword sheath suddenly shot out a ray of gray light that shot into the sky. Following that, a huge spatial door appeared in front of the sword sheath. It's the door that leads to the inside of the sword sheath. Seeing this, an immortal cried out involuntarily. When the other immortals saw this, their eyes immediately flashed with greed. All of them seemed to have gone mad as they rushed towards the door, fighting to be the first, afraid that they would fall behind. Seeing that, Su-Yun immediately activated the ancestors' chi, intending to seal the spatial door, but the door was not simple. It seemed to know that Su-Yun wanted to seal it. The moment the ancestors' chi approached, a large amount of fierce chi immediately shot out, completely shattering the ancestors' chi, and those who were about to enter were unable to escape the corrosion of the terrifying fierce chi. All of them turned into ashes, not even leaving behind any residue. Su-Yun originally thought that this scene would scare these people who were completely controlled by greed, but in reality, he was wrong. In front of benefits, people would often become irrational. Chapter 1558. The immortals crazily rushed into the sword sheath, completely disregarding the consequences. Some people had already recognized what the sword sheath was, and became even more berserk, but they automatically ignored the fact that the sword sheath was supposed to be worn by Su-Yun. These immortals continued to rush into the sword sheath, and their power would cause the evil sword to become even more restless. Of course, it was difficult for them to escape, and they would all be absorbed by the evil sword, and not a single one of them would be able to escape. At this moment, the main body of the evil sword was about to completely break free from Ling Qing Yu's restriction. The current it was unprecedentedly powerful, and even the ancestor would find it difficult to deal with it. However, he could not allow these immortals to enter the sword sheath, otherwise it would be a burden to Ling Qing Yu. Su-Yun took a deep breath, and directly blocked the front of the spatial door, with his hands behind his back. He looked at the immortals with a cold expression. All of you, stop. If anyone dares to approach the limitless sword sheath again, don't blame me for being merciless. Seeing Su-Yun appear, many immortals stopped in their tracks. However, there were also some who did not know what was good for them and rushed forward. Where did you come from? How dare you behave so atrociously here? Scram, or else I'll take your dog life. How arrogant! At the moment, Su-Yun did not have much patience. Facing those immortals who did not know if they were dead or alive, he did not hesitate at all. With a wave of his hand, he crushed a few Origin Realm experts, and with a wave of his chi, countless spirit god existences were annihilated. The immortals who had stopped in their tracks were immediately stunned. Su-Yun. He is Su-Yun. Someone shouted out in panic. Hearing these two words, countless immortals felt as if they were struck by lightning. This person was actually Su-Yun? In other words, this person was an ancestor? Furthermore, he was the strongest ancestor in all the realms? They were afraid and did not dare to move forward anymore. Facing this terrifying giant, they were finally afraid. But just then, a large number of figures appeared in the sky from all directions. Countless immortals rushed over, and at the same time, Su Yun could clearly feel a strange power floating over from the spatial door behind him that led to the sword sheath's world. This power could seize one's soul, and it had a feeling of controlling one's mind. It was extremely strange. It was impossible for Ling Qingyu to use such power, so, the power definitely came from the ominous sword. The ominous sword was attracting the experts of the immortal world over, and had started to use its own power to make the immortal world experts enter the sword sheath. It wanted to be like before, to create even more slaughter and chaos, to produce even more violence and blood, to absorb even more darkness and evil, to strengthen itself, to completely suppress Ling Qingyu. Scram! All of you scram! Su Yun suddenly realized something. He raised his head and roared with his loudest voice. The primogenitor's voice spread out in the form of a shockwave. Those who were close to it were sent flying, coughing up blood. However, those who were far away only slowed down a little. They did not retreat and continued to rush over. Su Yun did not know that even though the evil sword was inside the sword sheath, it was still able to affect the experts in the realm through the overflowing qi. It controlled the greed and malice in the hearts of these immortals, and made them come here to fight for the evil sword. It did not control the subjective thoughts of these immortals, it only gave them one thing: boundless greed. In the face of greed, these immortals became inexplicably brave. Even though they knew that the existence standing in front of the spatial door was the absolute expert of the myriad heavens realm, Ancestor Su Yun, they did not consider retreating. They urgently wanted to obtain the ominous sword, and wanted everything. Seeing that the eyes of these people were getting crazier and crazier, Su Yun understood that he could no longer persuade these immortals to retreat, and they would not consider retreating either. Since that was the case, he had no other choice. If these immortals were to enter the sword sheath, the consequences would be dire. Not to mention the appearance of the ominous sword, even Qing Yu would meet with misfortune. Su Yun's eyes gradually turned blood-red. He extended his hand and extended it towards the sword sheath. The death sword appeared in his palm, and a dense killing intent spread out from his body in all directions. Since all of you are courting death, then I will grant your wish. With that said, Su Yun unrestrainedly raised the death sword and slashed towards the nearest immortal. The pitch-black sword blade carried a mournful sword hiss as it sliced the immortal into pieces, leaving no soul behind. Ah! A few more immortals rushed over, as if they had gone mad. They pounced towards Su Yun. Scram! Let us in! An angry roar rang out. But in Su Yun's eyes, their actions were like suicide. Die! Su Yun did not show any mercy. He raised the death sword and started to slaughter crazily. Wherever the sword tip passed, blood splattered everywhere, and anyone who got close to the sword sheath was killed without exception. Their corpses turned into fragments that flew all over the sky. Su Yun's crazy massacre attracted even more immortals. The destructive aura accompanied by the dense blood rippled in the air. Even though Su Yun's methods were extremely cruel, but the immortals were affected by the evil sword. They were not afraid of Su Yun at all. One after another, fighting to be the first, they did not know what fear was. Since none of you want to live, then don't blame me, Su Yun said coldly. The death sword in his hand was like the scythe of a death god, crazily harvesting the immortals who were controlled by greed. These immortals were like persimmons that had been blown by a strong wind. All of them were broken and fell from the sky. Not many of them were able to survive. Stop! Just then, an angry voice came from afar. Su Yun raised his head and saw an immortal dressed in a golden robe rushing over, pointing at Su Yun and scolding angrily. You devil, you actually slaughtered immortals here for no reason. Your crimes are simply heinous and unforgivable. If you don't surrender now, I might spare your life. You want me to surrender? Spare my life? Su Yun cut down an immortal and said coldly to the immortal, Why do you have to be so dignified? Isn't your goal the same as theirs? It's just for this ominous sword. What a bunch of sanctimonious people! With Su Yun directly piercing through the window paper, the immortal's face could no longer hold on. They did not seem to be completely affected by the ominous sword, and still maintained a lot of rationality, but more or less they were still affected. Su Yun casually sized him up. This golden-robed immortal was at least in the middle stage of the God-sealing realm, and had already started to walk towards the peak of the God-sealing realm. He could be considered a great immortal, but, in Su Yun's eyes, his cultivation was nothing. I know you, you are Su Yun, the newly promoted ancestor, your methods are heavenly, your power is huge, but, Su Yun, don't think that just because you are the ancestor, you can be lawless. This world is not something that you, Su Yun, can control, and the ancestor is not only you, Su Yun. I have already gathered 3,000 great immortals, and together with the 9 Yang Divine Palace, I have invited the ancient supreme expert 9 Yang Ancestor to come out of the mountain. The 9 Yang Ancestor is the winner of the previous Great Stone Monument competition, and has obtained the inheritance of the stone monument, and has already stepped into the ancestor realm, and has lived longer than you, so his strength will definitely not lose to yours, and with the help of 3,000 great immortals, you are definitely not our match. You have no chance of winning. I think you should just obediently surrender. In case we start fighting, you will be humiliated. The great immortal shouted. Hearing that, Su Yun said coldly, You want me to surrender? Are you sure? Seeing Su Yun's determined expression, the golden-robed immortal frowned, feeling that something was wrong. But at this time, Su Yun added, You want me to surrender? How do you want me to surrender? Hearing that, the immortal heaved a sigh of relief. The nervousness from before had disappeared by quite a bit. He thought that Su Yun had admitted defeat, but thinking about it, with such a power, who in the entire universe could contend against it? A wise man did not fight when the odds were against him. No matter how strong Su Yun was, 2 fists would not be able to fight against 4 hands, right? His eyes revealed a trace of complacency and arrogance. He smiled and said, You are the ancestor after all. We will not make things difficult for you, as long as you hand over your limitless sword sheath, then surrender and listen to Lord Jiu Yang's arrangements. That will do. It seems like you still don't understand your current situation. Do you know who you are talking to? Before the golden-robed immortal could finish speaking, Su Yun suddenly interrupted him, and spoke indifferently. With that said, the golden-robed immortal's heart couldn't help but twitch. He felt that something was wrong. He said in a low voice, Ancestor Jiu Yang and the others are already rushing over here. I believe it won't be long before they arrive here. If you dare to do anything to me, it means that you want to become enemies with Ancestor Jiu Yang. You must think clearly. There's no need to think about it. Su Yun snorted. He suddenly raised his hand, and grabbed towards the golden-robed immortal. The golden-robed immortal's body seemed to be a piece of iron attracted by a magnet, quickly flying towards his palm. He wanted to struggle free, but found that his strength was useless, like a fist smashing into a mountain, unable to move it at all. Is this the power of the ancestor? The golden-robed immortal's heart trembled as he thought. Not to mention the fact that Ancestor Jiu Yang is on his way. Even if he is standing in front of me right now, what can he do? I even dared to kill Dark Sky. Who does he think he is? With that said, Su Yun exerted force with his palm, and the golden-robed immortal's body immediately turned into powder, floating down from his palm with the wind. Not even his soul was left. People in the middle stage of the God realm posed no threat to Su Yun. Even those at the peak of the God realm were pitifully small in Su Yun's eyes, not to mention this person. Even if the ancestor Jiu Yang personally came, Su Yun would not be afraid. With the death of the golden-robed immortal, the surrounding immortals finally woke up. All of them looked at Su Yun with fear in their eyes. Their pupils were filled with hesitation and fear. The greed in their hearts had already been replaced by fear, and they no longer dared to take even half a step towards the sword sheath. Chapter 1559. The surrounding immortals were extremely afraid. No one dared to rush towards the sword sheath again, and the power inside the sword sheath did not show any signs of increasing. It seemed like Ling Qingyu was still able to restrain the sword sheath in the end, but Su Yun knew that Ling Qingyu would not be able to hold it back for long. The current Su Yun was completely like a blood man, and on the ground around him, there was blood and flesh powder. The immortals who could maintain their powdery bodies under his attacks were all experts who had already entered the God-conferred realm. If it was anyone else, they would not even have any powder left, and would have directly turned into clouds and mist, disappearing with the wind without leaving a trace. The surrounding immortals were completely intimidated by his terrifying methods, and at that moment, Su Yun did not wait for the surrounding immortals to rush over before making a move. He seemed to be completely immersed in the slaughter, unable to extricate himself. He took the initiative to raise the buzzing death sword and rush towards the surrounding immortals. The slaughter continued. Walala, just then, the sound of something tearing through the air came from afar. The dark sky in the distance suddenly shone with a boundless light, and a scorching heat spread towards them, causing the immortals gathered around the sword sheath to sweat profusely, their faces flushed red. But the temperature did not drop, but instead rose at an astonishing speed. Not long later, the bodies of the immortals started to emit thick smoke, all of their skin was blood-red, and their bodies were extremely dry, as though they could burn at any time. The light seemed to have its own consciousness, it did not scatter randomly, but concentrated in one area, and this area was where Su Yun was. The immortals around Su Yun started to howl one by one, the auras on their bodies were completely burnt by the terrifying light. Following that, pale white flames actually started to sprout from their bodies. The flames were so terrifying, to be able to burn the God-conferred realm qi, it was truly shocking. These people could not rely on their own qi to extinguish the flames, nor did they have any other way to stop the flames from devouring their bodies. In the blink of an eye, all the immortals here were covered by the pale white flames, and after a moment the flames disappeared, but the immortals also disappeared along with the flames. It seemed like they had been completely burned to death. However, facing the terrifying light, Su Yun was like a statue, not moving at all. The terrifying temperature did not seem to affect him in the slightest. The light gradually weakened, and the person from the other side also flew over. This person was dressed in a fiery red robe, had a head of red hair, and his eyes were red. On his face, there were even fire patterns that looked like blood, making him look extremely domineering, especially his eyes, which seemed to contain a terrifying temperature. He only glanced at Su Yun and then snorted. "You are Su Yun, right? Ancestor 9 Sons?" Su Yun asked indifferently. "That's right, it's me." Ancestral Ancestor 9 Sons said coldly. "I've been in seclusion for nearly 10,000 years. I don't know much about you, and I don't know where you came from. However, along the way, the fellows behind me told me many things about you. I heard that you're very arrogant, and you consider everyone beneath you. You don't even put a senior like me in your eyes, and you even plan to rule the myriad worlds. I don't know what you're thinking, but since I'm here today, I'll let you know that you're not the only one who has the final say in the universe." Ancestral Ancestor 9 Sons' attitude was very resolute, but in Su Yun's eyes, his words were lacking. "I originally thought that as an ancestor, you would more or less see things more clearly than these ignorant people, but I never thought that you would actually be so brainless and blind. Laughable, extremely laughable. For the sake of benefits, you guys really do anything. Ask yourself, are the words you're saying really what you're thinking? I'm afraid not, right? Your goal is not much different from those immortals who died. It's all for the evil sword." Su Yun did not give Ancestral Ancestor 9 Sons any face, and directly said what he was thinking. However, Ancestral Ancestor 9 Sons was clearly someone who had experienced a lot of storms and waves. He did not feel embarrassed or ashamed because of Su Yun's words at all, and his state of mind was completely unaffected. He shook his head indifferently and said, Su Yun, you indiscriminately kill the innocent, commit all sorts of crimes, and have the ambition of a wolf. Who knows how many sins you have committed? If the evil sword is in your hands, it will only be a misfortune for the living beings of the myriad realms. In order to save the common people, I can only take the evil sword away from your hands. Another sanctimonious person who only knows how to spout some high-sounding words. It's a pity that even though your words sound so nice, how many of us here are fools? Do you really think anyone will believe your words? Su Yun coldly snorted. It's useless for you to say so much, and you don't know what kind of situation you're in right now. The living beings of the myriad realms are about to be destroyed, but you're still scheming and fighting for the evil sword. What a joke! After saying that, Su Yun suddenly raised his feet and walked towards Ancestral Ancestor Nine Suns. Every step he took was filled with killing intent. Ancestral Ancestor Nine Suns frowned, and the 3,000 great immortals behind him all rushed forward, brandishing their weapons and facing Su Yun. It seems like you don't plan to surrender, Ancestral Ancestor Nine Suns said coldly. What else do I need to say to a group of shameless people like you? Furthermore, in my eyes, you, Ancestral Ancestor Nine Suns, are no different from these great immortals. What do I have to fear? Arrogant. Ancestral Ancestor Nine Suns was completely enraged. He shouted in a low voice, "Kill!" The 3,000 great immortals immediately rushed towards Su Yun like a flood. 3,000 experts of the God Ascension realm, these were practically all the great immortals left in the immortal world. This power was extremely strong. It would not be difficult for them to destroy the immortal world, but now they were all rushing towards Su Yun, because the person they wanted to deal with was the Ancestor. Those who entered the God Ascension realm were all thinking about how to step into the Supreme Ancestor realm. The conditions to step into the Ancestor realm were simply too harsh, and those who could enter the Ancestor realm all entered through the stone tablet. There were almost no historical records of who entered this powerful realm through their own strength, and these great immortals of the God Ascension realm all hoped to receive guidance from the Ancestor realm. At the same time, when Ancestral Ancestor Nine Suns found out that his opponent was also an Ancestor, and a newly advanced Ancestor, he already had a plan. Thus, Ancestral Ancestor Nine Suns used the excuse of guiding these immortals and helping them break through to ask them to help him kill Su Yun. Su Yun was clear about the power of the Ancestor, and Ancestral Ancestor Nine Suns was even clearer about it, but these great immortals were not clear about it. Ancestral Ancestor Nine Suns knew that these great immortals could not defeat Su Yun, and on the contrary, they could not pose much of a threat to Su Yun. However, they had a huge use for it, and that was consumption. That's right, Ancestral Ancestor Nine Suns planned to use these 3,000 great immortals to continuously exhaust Su Yun. This way, he would be able to easily get rid of Su Yun without spending much effort. Use all your strength to buy me time. I will use the Nine Suns God arts to wipe him out. Ancestral Ancestor Nine Suns shouted loudly. At the same time, he used a technique, his entire body shining with boundless light. But Su Yun could feel that the ancestral power on his body did not fluctuate much, as though everything was just a bluff. Ancestral Ancestor Nine Suns' thoughts could easily deceive these great immortals, but they could not deceive him. It was just that Su Yun did not plan to expose all of this, because in the current situation, no words could change the situation, only absolute power could allow him to grasp the final victory. Su Yun did not say a word. He raised the death sword and slashed towards the great immortal who was the first to rush over. The great immortal's heart was beating wildly. He felt that Su Yun's ancestral aura was like a huge mountain made of iron, pressing down on him, causing him to be unable to even breathe. He could be considered a great immortal who had grasped the wind attribute. His speed was ridiculously fast, and his reaction was also extraordinary. When the death sword slashed down, the great immortal immediately used all of his strength, wanting to dodge. But just then, Su Yun suddenly let go of the sword in his hand, and the death sword immediately scuttled away. Its speed was so fast that the great immortal was unable to catch it. The great immortal did not even see the sword image, and discovered that the sword had returned to Su Yun's hand. Su Yun held onto the sword and slashed towards another immortal, but did not look at him anymore. Did he ignore me? The immortal thought to himself, but in the next second, he realized that everything was wrong. It turned out that the current him was only a strand of his soul, and his body had long since been destroyed by the death sword. The speed was too fast, and he did not even notice that his body had been destroyed. He opened his eyes wide and looked at Su Yun. Only then did he realize that Su Yun's strength had far exceeded their imagination. Any great immortal who got close to him would become a dead soul under his sword. No matter who it was, they would not even be able to withstand a single move. These 3,000 great immortals were like moths flying into a flame, continuously falling under Su Yun's sword. Too strong. Too powerful. This kind of existence was not something that a great immortal could contend against. His heart trembled, but he was torn apart by a destructive aura that came crashing towards him. In the blink of an eye, over 100 great immortals had fallen, but looking at Su Yun, he was not injured in the slightest. Is this Su Yun's strength? It's impossible for us to kill him. He's too strong. Let's retreat. The great immortals were afraid, and did not dare to fight with Su Yun anymore. Ancestor Nine Suns was also shocked. Su Yun's strength was actually much stronger than he had imagined. Regardless of whether it was the ancestor's aura or the sharp sword force, they were not something he could compare to. Of course, what he was good at was not what Su Yun had displayed. In the end, he is a sword cultivator. Ancestor Nine Suns coldly snorted, and suddenly shouted, "Don't be afraid, my Nine Suns God art is about to be activated. Everyone, buy me some more time, charge." He's just one person, how strong can he be? Chapter 1560. Hearing the words of the Nine Suns' ancestor, the fearful hearts of the immortals finally felt a little comforted. Did everyone hear what Lord Nine Suns said? As long as we buy some time for the Lord, this person will definitely die. Everyone, don't be afraid. An immortal shouted. But just as he finished speaking, a deathly still ancestral aura immediately swept over, and with lightning speed, it wrapped around his body. When the aura dissipated, his body and soul also dissipated. Killing people without a trace was no longer a method, it was simply like a god's judgment on mortals. Unknowingly, everyone felt that their lives were already in Su Yun's hands. They did not know that the person they were facing was not an ordinary ancestor, but a peak ancestor who had completely comprehended the contents of the stone tablet and had absorbed the power of two ancestors. Su Yun did not want to waste any more time with these people. His eyes turned cold. He raised his sword and rushed forward, his body transforming into a gust of gray wind, and in the gray wind, a large number of chi swords flew out. These chi swords were like living creatures, flying towards the great immortals. "Be careful!" The great immortals roared. They were completely panicking, continuously activating their magic treasures and techniques to defend against the terrifying flying swords. There were close to 10,000 flying swords, and everyone had to face a few of them, but even if there was only one, it would be difficult for them to deal with it. This was a sword formed from chi, and it was the ancestors' chi, so it was impossible for them to shatter this chi with just the chi of the sealed god realm. Very quickly, the great immortals fell one after another. The powerful great immortals were also covered in wounds, and there was not much chi left in their bodies. They looked at Su Yun with pleading eyes, gasping for breath, wanting to beg Su Yun to show mercy, but at the moment, Su Yun did not have any mercy. The chi sword was fatal. Very quickly, out of the 3,000 great immortals, there were less than 100 left. The sealed god chi in the air was completely covered by Su Yun's ancestors' chi. It was extremely terrifying. Lord Jiuyang, quickly save us, quickly save us. The rest of the people retreated while resisting the Qi sword, shouting at the top of their lungs. But the Nine Suns' ancestor turned a blind eye to it. He looked at the dense ancestral aura around Su Yun, and not only was he not afraid, he was instead excited and laughed out loud. Ha 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 ha, Toad, after using so much ancestor Qi, Su Yun must have consumed a lot of energy. It's worth it, it's worth it. Su Yun, you will definitely die today, ha 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 ha. Ancestor Nine Suns laughed out loud. Everything was as he had expected. The great immortals immediately understood Ancestor Nine Suns' plan. It turned out that they had always been pawns that the ancestor of the Nine Suns used to exhaust Su Yun. In the eyes of the ancestor of the Nine Suns, their lives were worthless, and he would not cherish them. The great immortals looked at Ancestor Nine Suns in despair. Finally, a great immortal could not take it anymore. He roared in anger and charged towards Ancestor Nine Suns. But just as he got close, a powerful light shot over and melted his body into gas. Lord Nine Suns! Everyone shouted at Ancestor Nine Suns with a questioning and indignant tone, but the current Ancestor Nine Suns seemed to have become a different person. He sneered and once again released a strong light, burning these people to death. All of the great immortals were annihilated, and not a single one survived. Seeing that, Su Yun said coldly, "Only now do I understand that whether a person's cultivation is strong or not actually does not have much of an effect on their state of mind. Their nature is still the same. What's the use of saying all this now? You have already lost, and I will obtain the ominous sword and unify the myriad realms." Ancestor Nine Suns laughed out loud, still immersed in the complacency of his plan succeeding. However, he did not know how childish and foolish everything he had said and done was in Su Yun's eyes. The ominous sword was about to destroy the world, but these immortals were completely unaware of it, and did not even have any vigilance towards the changes in the myriad realms. At such a critical juncture, they were still thinking about benefits, thinking about dominating. Su Yun did not know if they were pitiful, or if it was the so-called human nature that was pitiful. He took a deep breath and walked towards Ancestor Nine Suns with the death sword in hand. Ancestor Nine Suns looked at Su Yun with a smile on his face. As Su Yun got closer and closer, his body started to emit a scorching light, which gathered at Su Yun's chest, and the temperature continued to rise. The air was scorched by the scorching light, and it was extremely terrifying. Su Yun's chest was completely red, but he did not even frown, nor did he slow down at all. It was as if he did not feel anything at all, and continued to walk towards Ancestor Nine Suns. Ancestor Nine Suns' smile froze. What was going on? Why did this guy ignore my magic? Could it be that my spell was completely ineffective against him? Ancestor Nine Suns immediately increased the intensity of the light. The scorching light was almost snow-white, without the slightest flaw, and on the outside of the light, there was a layer of terrifying purple light. It was unknown what kind of temperature the light had reached, but even the strongest spell of the Holy Fire Devil was not worth mentioning in front of the light. However, even so, it was still unable to stop Su Yun from advancing. Impossible! Ancestor Nine Suns' face gradually became sinister. He did not believe that with Su Yun's strength, he could ignore his spell. This guy must be holding on. Yes, he must be holding on. He couldn't even defend himself against his technique. He was pretending to be fine just to scare him. After Ancestor Nine Suns thought about it, he revealed an enlightened expression, but he did not loosen his grip at all. The ancestral aura around his body became even more ferocious, like surging seawater. It continuously surged out from his body, transforming into a terrifying light that was released. "Is that all you have?" Just then, Su Yun suddenly said with a voice filled with disdain. This voice was like a steel needle that instantly pierced into Ancestor Nine Suns' heart. His heart twitched, and the ancestral aura around his body seemed to have been struck by something, and stopped for a moment. He opened his eyes and looked at Su Yun, his face filled with disbelief. But just then, Su Yun's figure suddenly disappeared. Ancestor Nine Suns seemed to have suffered some kind of stimulation. He roared, and immediately 9 gigantic fireballs rushed out from his body. These fireballs were purple in color, their entire bodies were emitting purple flames. The moment the 9 fireballs rushed out, the sky was immediately covered in purple flames, the void fire was ignited, the temperature continued to rise. He finally knew that Su Yun's strength was far from as simple as he had imagined. He could not underestimate his opponent anymore. "I will completely destroy you." Ancestor Nine Suns roared loudly, the 9 sun-like spheres with him as the center, crazily rotating. The entire sky was a sea of fire, the immortal realm was completely enveloped in flames, it was like a purgatory of fire. But at this time, an even more powerful ancestral power suddenly surged over, like a huge wave, the sea of fire immediately extinguished by more than half, the temperature also dropped by a lot. Ancestor Nine Suns was shocked. He raised his head to look, only to see a figure instantly appearing in front of a purple fireball, slashing vertically with his sword. The sword was unstoppable, cutting the purple fireball into 2. The purple fireball immediately exploded. With a dong sound, the destructive shock waves spread out in all directions. Even Ancestor Nine Suns was sent flying. But before he could stabilize himself, another explosion sounded out. His face turned pale white. He anxiously raised his head, only to see that Su Yun seemed to have gone mad, crazily slashing at his purple ball. Every time he slashed, the purple ball would explode, and Su Yun would also be forced back. The current Su Yun was in a sorry state, his clothes were tattered, and his skin had become extremely red, but he did not care, as though the injuries on his body were nothing to him. These 9 purple balls were extremely powerful magic treasures that the ancestor of the 9 Suns had refined using the souls of the 9 life fire supreme expert and his own life force. Every fireball was connected to his life force, and if one was destroyed, his life force would be severely injured. It was impossible for ordinary people to get close to the fireball. The intense temperature of the fireball was enough to melt an existence at the peak of the god realm. Even the ancestor could not ignore its high temperature, but Su Yun not only ignored it, he even dared to destroy it. Aren't you the newly promoted ancestor? Why is your strength so terrifying?" Ancestor Nine Suns finally felt that something was wrong, his voice trembling as he shouted. This dense ancestor power, this exquisite small world law, the development of the small world civilization in his body was many times stronger than Ancestor Nine Suns. Was this really what a newly promoted ancestor had? The 9 purple balls were all shattered, causing the 9 Suns' ancestor's life to be severely injured. He clenched his teeth and rushed towards Su Yun, opening his mouth. A terrifying white flame spewed out, striking towards Su Yun like a fire snake. Su Yun did not dodge, and rushed towards Ancestor Nine Suns. "I am indeed a newly promoted ancestor, but I have completely comprehended the power of the stone tablet, and even seized the strength of the 2 ancestors, Dark Sky and Hao Tian. The current me is already at the peak of the ancestor's strength. How can you contend against me?" Su Yun slashed apart the terrifying fire snake, and continued to attack Ancestor Nine Suns. The sharp sword Qi tore apart Ancestor Nine Suns' ancestor Qi, and smashed onto his body. Ancestor Nine Suns' face distorted, his palms turned into flames, and bluntly smashed onto Su Yun's body, igniting his body. Su Yun instantly turned into a man of fire. "Die!" Ancestor Nine Suns roared, and increased the firepower, causing Su Yun's body to burn even more vigorously. But he did not even let out a sound of pain, as though he had completely lost consciousness. The death sword followed his movements and pierced through Ancestor Nine Suns' chest. Following that, gulp, The death sword's withering chi seeped into his body, wantonly plundering Ancestor Nine Sun's ancestor power. Ancestor Nine Sun's heart was thumping wildly, and his mind was so shocked that it almost went blank. What was going on with this sword? Chapter 1561. He wanted to stop it, but it was too late. Su Yun's power was too tyrannical and terrifying, and in an instant, half of the ancestral power in his body had been extracted. Just as he was about to pull out and leave, Su Yun's other hand pressed down on the top of his head. The enormous power made it impossible for him to pull out. Unless he cut off his own head, it was impossible for him to escape Su Yun's control. The ancestor of the Nine Suns could clearly feel that his power was flowing out crazily. Through the sword that was stabbed into his body, Su Yun was trying his best to absorb everything in his body. He felt that his body was about to shrivel up. No, no, Su Yun, let me go, let me go. Ancestor Nine Suns finally felt the fear of death, and shouted at the top of his lungs. But at that moment, no matter what he said, Su Yun would not listen. He continued to urge the power in his body, absorbing the essence of Ancestor Nine Suns. After a while, Ancestor Nine Suns' sturdy body gradually became shriveled, his eyes sunk in, and the light emitted from his body slowly dimmed. In the end, his hands drooped down, and he powerlessly fell to the ground. The ancestor's powerful strength allowed him to still have a breath of life, but the ancestor's aura in his body had already been completely absorbed by Su Yun, and even the small world in his body had been completely absorbed by Su Yun, leaving behind only a pile of ruins. Su Yun pinched at any time, shattering Ancestor Nine Suns' small head. Ancestor Nine Suns died miserably. His soul flew out, but before it could fly far, it was swallowed by Su Yun and completely digested. Another ancestor was completely swallowed by Su Yun. Up till now, Su Yun had already devoured 4 ancestors, and even if all the ancestors in the myriad heavens realm were added up, it would be difficult to surpass 10 of them, and Su Yun had already killed 3 of them by himself. This was an achievement that no one could compare to, and adding his devouring, it caused him to have no opponents in the myriad heavens realm. But Su Yun understood that even if he was invincible in the myriad worlds, it would be useless, because whether the myriad worlds could survive was still a problem. All the immortals had been killed, and the place was still filled with the dense aura of the ancestors' battle. The immortals that rushed over were also scared away by the aura, and no one dared to approach. Su Yun did not know if there were any other ancestors in the immortal world, but even if there were, he was not afraid. He picked up the sword sheath that had fallen to the ground and looked at the deathly silence around him. After pausing for a moment, he walked towards the space gate at the sword sheath. The world of the sword sheath was now even darker and more terrifying. Dense malice filled the world, and the greedy immortals were swallowed by the malice as soon as they rushed into the sword sheath. They didn't even have time to confirm which direction the malice sword was in. Su Yun endured the fierce chi and advanced towards the fierce sword. With his current strength, facing the terrifying fierce chi, he actually had some difficulty. Not long later, he had already landed in front of the evil sword. At the moment, the evil sword was still as huge as before, but what was different from before was that the surface of the evil sword was no longer just releasing fierce chi, there was also a terrifying sword chi, which was different from Su Yun's sword chi. It was a terrifying sword chi that only existed in pure destructive power. Just by getting close, Su Yun felt a strange feeling that made him feel incomparable pain. He knew that the power of the evil sword had increased again. It was already able to affect his mental state. He let out a light breath, secretly maintaining his mind. He looked in front of the evil sword. There was a faint figure standing in the air. The figure had her eyes closed, both hands facing forward, her palms facing the evil sword. Strands of mysterious power overflowed from her palms, entering the inside of the evil sword, suppressing the evil sword's power, but the figure continued to sway, looking extremely uncomfortable. Su Yun did not dare hesitate any longer, and immediately walked towards the sword eye of the evil sword. The sword eye was mostly covered with the blood essence that the evil sword had absorbed when it killed those experts in its previous life, and the rest was a terrifying fierce qi. These two substances fused with each other, and actually condensed into an indestructible shield in the sword eye, sealing the world inside and outside the evil sword. Su Yun took out the realm tree divine wood and moved towards the shield at the sword eye. The fierce qi on the shield immediately retreated, as though it had encountered something that it was extremely afraid of. The evil sword represented destruction, and the boundless life force of the realm tree divine wood represented hope and life. The two were enemies, but the evil sword was too strong, and the divine wood was only a small portion in Su Yun's hands. It was far from being able to contend against the evil sword, but it was still possible to expel the fierce qi around the sword eye. After the fierce qi was removed, the wall shield formed from the blood of the evil sword was exposed in front of Su Yun. Su Yun once again took out the Qi Xie's heart that he had obtained from the evil realm, and fiercely smashed it towards the blood shield. Crack! Qi Xie's heart was fiercely pressed onto the blood shield, the huge force directly turning Qi Xie's heart into powder. The terrifying evil spirit Qi inside was also released at the same time. Qi Xie's heart was like sulfuric acid. It actually started to corrode the terrifying blood shield. The smooth blood shield immediately had a large number of dents, and gradually it was corroded until it broke into pieces. It was riddled with holes. It was extremely cautious. No matter how strong the blood shield was, it could not escape the fact that it was made from blood, and the evil spirit Qi could restrain the power of the blood. It could cause the blood to deteriorate, and absorb and even consume the power of the blood. Although the blood essence was the blood of a powerful immortal, and something like Qi Xie's heart was not comparable to it, but the pure evil spirit Qi inside it was able to dissipate a large portion of the power of the blood, and when Qi Xie's heart completely disappeared, the entire blood shield was already in a state of desolation. It was a tragic sight. Su Yun took the opportunity, brandished the death sword, and fiercely slashed at the broken sword eye. Bang! The death sword immediately shattered the remaining blood wall, but the moment the blood wall shattered, the moment the sword eye opened, a terrifying suction force was produced. Su Yun did not even have time to react, and his entire body was sucked into the sword eye. His eyes immediately darkened, and he did not know where he was. The sound of the evil spirit Qi flowing in his ears gradually weakened. Time seemed to have stopped. There was no sound, and he could not feel anything moving. Su Yun slowly opened his eyes, only to see that in a place far away from him, there was a tall figure. The surroundings were pitch black, and the figure was also pitch black, but for some reason Su Yun saw him and felt him. His entire body was pitch black. He could not see his facial features. He had no hair, and even his body was pitch black like a swollen shadow. Su Yun stared at the shadow, his expression becoming unprecedentedly serious. Could this be the will of the evil spirit sword's main body? Suddenly, a blood-red lightning flashed past Su Yun's eyes without any warning. Su Yun's heart seemed to have stopped. In the next second, a terrifying blood blade directly slashed towards him. What is this? Su Yun's heart was beating wildly. He shouted out loud. He wanted to raise the death sword to block, but to his shock, his speed seemed to have dropped by countless times, and he was unable to defend against this attack. Su Yun's head hurt. Following that, his heart lost the strength to beat. The strength in his body also slowly retreated like a receding tide. His consciousness started to blur, and everything gradually disappeared, as if he was dead. Could it be that he was instantly killed by this strange will? Su Yun's blurry consciousness surged with such a thought, and then, his blurry consciousness completely dissipated. He also stopped thinking, and his body floated in the pitch-black evil spirit sword world. Countless evil spirit chi seemed to have a soul at that moment. They uniformly pounced towards Su Yun and wrapped around his body. Like a huge stomach, they started to digest Su Yun's body. But in that moment of life and death, a mournful sword hiss exploded out from the evil spirit chi, and the gigantic stomach immediately exploded, and Su Yun's robust figure flew out. So close. Su Yun's heart that seemed to have stopped was beating crazily. Just a moment ago, he was almost killed by the evil sword's will. The evil sword was strong, and the power of the evil sword's will was even more difficult to measure. The moment Su Yun entered the evil sword world, it launched a silent attack on him. From the appearance of the lightning-like light, to the time when Su Yun's heart stopped and his consciousness dissipated, it was all an illusion, and the most terrifying thing about this illusion was that if the caster was unable to detect it, his own consciousness would be subconsciously sealed, and in the end, the illusion would become reality, and his consciousness would completely die, and he would never be able to save himself. Fortunately, at this critical moment, Su Yun's eye of reincarnation worked. Although Su Yun's consciousness was sealed by this strange method, but his eyes, from the beginning to the end, maintained a clear look and saw through everything. Only then did he awaken Su Yun's consciousness and break through the technique. Terrifying. Without a sound, it almost forced him to his death. What kind of existence was the will of the evil sword's main body? Su Yun clenched his teeth, no longer remaining silent. He raised the death sword and rushed towards the evil sword. "Stop right there, sinful creature!" Just as Su Yun was approaching, a loud and clear voice suddenly entered Su Yun's ears. Su Yun frowned and looked towards the voice. Is this the voice of the main body's will? It can actually speak? But why does this voice and the main body seem so out of place? He did not pay much attention to it, and struck out with his sword. At the same time, the countless terrifying evil spirit chi in the evil sword world gathered, directly forming a huge shield in front of the figure. The death sword smashed onto the huge shield, releasing a loud clanging sound, but it did not break. On the contrary, Su Yun was forced to retreat 1,000 meters. The huge shield blocked Su Yun and immediately dispersed, but it did not recover its evil spirit chi state, but transformed again, turning into an army formed from evil spirit chi. With a glance, there were actually over 1,000,000 people. They were neatly arranged in front of the main body's will, raising their swords and blades high up, facing Su Yun. The intent of extermination was like a storm, pouncing in all directions. Su Yun's face congealed. He raised his hand and quickly formed hand seals. Immediately countless chi swords appeared around him. All of them were like living creatures, spiraling around him, transforming into a sword tornado. Su Yun clenched his teeth, his face sinister. He took a step forward, and rushed towards the main body's will. As long as he destroyed the main body's will, everything would end. All the worries, all the anxiety, all the hesitation and unease would vanish like smoke into thin air. There would no longer be anything that could threaten him, and there would no longer be any disputes or worries that would force him. As long as he destroyed the main body's will, he would obtain everything that he had always dreamed of. Ah! Su Yun roared and crashed into the 1,000,000-strong army. Puff, 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 puff. The chi sword tornado was like a reaper, continuously tearing apart the fierce aura, while Su Yun held onto the death sword and waved it crazily, slowly moving towards the main body's will. But the strength of the main body's will was far beyond his imagination. Not long after, the fierce aura that was torn apart once again turned into a fierce person that blocked Su Yun. Not only that, the fierce aura seemed to be ever-changing, and under the control of the will, it actually turned into many terrifying fierce swords that flew towards Su Yun. Su Yun was instantly surrounded, unable to advance any further. Fortunately, he had the strength of a peak ancestor. If it was anyone else, they would have been torn apart by the terrifying fierce aura. It was definitely not a way to continue fighting like this. Even if he had the strength of a peak ancestor, so what? Compared to the main body of the world-destroying sword, it was simply too insignificant. Su Yun's head spun quickly. He suddenly stared at the main body's will and shouted, "Hey! Stop! Let's talk." The main body's will had spoken just now, even though those words were very strange. Sure enough, not long after Su Yun spoke, the main body's will spoke again, but this time, his voice was extremely hoarse and low. Compared to the loud and clear voice from before, it was like heaven and earth. "The wheat is ripe. I'm going to harvest the wheat." These strange words caused Su Yun to be confused, but after talking to the main body's will for a while, Su Yun realized that the fierce aura around him had lessened a little. Even though it was not much, it was enough for him to catch his breath. "What are you talking about? What wheat is ripe? What wheat harvest?" Su Yun asked again. But at this time, the main body spoke again, and the voice was even more unique. "Io, isn't this great official he? Why did you come to me?" Su Yun was stunned. This was an extremely charming female voice. This was the voice of the evil sword's will. But in the next second, the evil sword's will spoke again, and it was one sentence after another. Each tone was different. Sometimes it was an old man, sometimes it was a young man, sometimes it was a strong man, sometimes it was a woman's soft moan. It was simply ever-changing. "The weather today is not bad. Why don't you cultivate? When yin and yang fuse together, it will be the day of my divine art's great success. Ha 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 ha. Gong Sun Rong, you killed my parents. Today, I will destroy your sect and avenge my parents. This sword is not bad. Little brother, do you want to keep the sword or your life?" The main bodies will continue to speak. The tone of the voice was different, but even the words it said were strange, completely unfathomable. No one knew what it was saying. It made people feel that it was more like a madman with outstanding vocal skills. Chapter 1562. Ugh! Su Yun clenched his teeth. He felt extremely powerless, although the main body of the evil sword did not make a move, but the attack of the evil chi was completely endless, as though it would not stop, and his ancestor's power was limited. If he continued to be consumed, sooner or later, he would fall. He had to think of a way to get close to the main body and completely erase its will. Su Yun did his best to activate the limitless sword arts. The chi sword continued to form in front of him, opening up a path, but the majority of the energy here was evil chi, the rest were deathly still chi. Su Yun could not control the evil chi at all, so the amount of chi that could be refined and condensed into chi sword was extremely little. Its power was completely incomparable to the evil chi. Under his full strength, he actually only advanced a kilometer, and the current him was still a full 5 kilometers away from the main body of the evil sword. No. If this continued, he would definitely lose. Sooner or later, the main body of the evil sword would activate the evil sword to destroy all worlds. Everything was probably going to be cleansed. The origin of fate, could it not end in the end? Su Yun clenched his teeth. His blood-red eyes filled with unwillingness. No matter what, he could not give up. He was not a person who would give up so easily. The more he was at this juncture, the easier it was for the stubborn madness in Su Yun's heart to be ignited. Ah! In this pitch-black world, an unwilling roar sounded out. He raised the death sword and walked forward with large strides. The chi sword crazily opened up a path, but the evil chi also became more and more ferocious. As he continued to move forward, he neglected his defense, and the two swords condensed from the evil chi directly slashed onto his shoulders, the evil chi corroding his body. But Su Yun did not frown. He did not stop and continued forward. The death sword in his hand seemed to feel the determination in its master's heart, and started to tremble, releasing its sword intent. Su Yun waved it forward. The sword power of the death sword directly shattered the hundreds of soldiers in front of him, clearing a path. He immediately took steps to attack, but before he could run far, the scattered evil chi condensed again, and actually turned into a lion and tiger with the size of an elephant in front of him. Su Yun snorted, he raised his sword and rushed again, but the lions and tigers formed from the fierce Qi were obviously stronger than the soldiers from before. The death sword had to slash a few times to kill one, and in that short period of time, the fierce Qi had already transformed into thousands of lions and tigers. Like a tidal wave, they pounced towards Su Yun. Even if Su Yun wanted to dodge, he could not, and was directly knocked down by the lion-tiger. Just as he was about to get up, a few big mouths bit him. Sword might. In the face of danger, Su Yun roared once again. His sword intent blossomed, and the sword might crushed the lions and tigers. The surrounding people were all crushed and turned into gas that floated in the air. The power of this move was extraordinary, but the consumption was equally astonishing. Su Yun anxiously crawled up and advanced forward, but just as he took a few steps forward, a wave of fierce Qi transformed into a gigantic wave and struck towards him. Its speed was as fast as light, and before he could even sense it, he was sent flying by the wave of Qi, falling 100 miles behind him, even further away from the will of the main body. Su Yun spat out blood, his heart was filled with anger. He felt as if the will was toying with him. However, after the will of the main body sent Su Yun flying, it did not follow up with another attack, and the majority of the fierce Qi surrounding the will of the main body also dissipated. It continued to speak in a completely out-of-tune manner, like a madman. Su Yun's eyes were filled with doubt. What was going on? Su Yun, are you all right? Just then, a voice suddenly entered Su Yun's ears. He was startled and looked around. It was Ling Qingyu's voice, but she did not seem to have entered the world of the evil sword. Qingyu, I'm fine. Are you all right? Su Yun immediately asked. I am no longer able to suppress the will of the evil sword's main body. If we do not act quickly, I am afraid that the power of the evil sword's main body will be activated. At that time, the main body will break out of the sword sheath and reappear in the world. Ling Qingyu's voice was extremely anxious. Hearing that, Su Yun's expression became distorted. His scarlet-red eyes stared at the shadow. He used one hand to support his body, tried his best to stand up, and said, Qingyu, don't worry, I will destroy the will of the main body. But right now, it is extremely difficult for you to even get close to the will. How can you destroy it? Ling Qingyu could see Su Yun's powerlessness, but she also understood that Su Yun did not want her to worry at all. She understood Su Yun, this person would not give up until he achieved his goal. Su Yun, you don't understand, this will is just a will that has yet to take form. It only retains its instinctive self-defense and destructive power. Other than that, there is nothing else. Not formed? Qingyu, what do you mean by that? As the sword spirit of the evil sword, I represent the thoughts of the evil sword, but in truth, before the last destruction of the world, I had not matured yet, and the evil sword's main body had absorbed too much slaughter, destruction and other negative factors in a short period of time, causing its power to increase greatly, and I was unable to control it, so I started to destroy the world, but the main body seemed to have already produced a will, wanting to eliminate me, and that new will should be this. It is just that this will was produced too quickly, it is extremely incomplete, and it relied on absorbing the will of the living beings that were destroyed to strengthen itself, causing the will to be in chaos, causing it to be extremely strong, but it was still suppressed by me. No wonder it said such a strange thing just now. It actually absorbed the thoughts and will of countless living beings, causing such a phenomenon. Su Yun said in realization. So, Su Yun, this is our chance, because it is unable to sort out its chaotic thoughts, it only has its instinctive consciousness, self-defense and destruction, we can completely extinguish it in this period of time. Ling Qingyu's voice became serious. Although I do not have much strength left, but I can still help you dispel the evil Qi, although the main bodies can control the evil Qi, but so can I. Su Yun, go. This was the last chance. Su Yun took a deep breath, holding onto the death sword tightly. He stood up. His eyes were like torches as he stared at the figure in the distance. Was that the beginning of fate? He growled, took a step forward, and activated all of the ancestral power in his body. He was like a raging wave, sweeping towards the figure. His eyes turned green. The eyes of reincarnation seemed to want to absorb the fate into his eyes. When he got closer, the scattered evil chi seemed to have been stimulated, and once again arranged itself in front of the figure. This time, the evil chi actually transformed into tens of thousands of terrifying divine dragons. Each of them was tens of thousands of meters long, and in front of him, it was as if a sky of dragons had been arranged. Roar! The fierce dragon roared, its power leaking out, causing Su Yun to be unable to move forward. Scatter! Ling Qingyu's loud shout resonated in the world of the evil sword. This was her last bit of strength. She had been fighting with the evil sword for a long time, and it was difficult to replenish it. She no longer had the power to control the main body, and now, what she hoped for was to end all of this. At least, she did not want to see the myriad spirits die because of her, and the myriad worlds perish because of her. Crash! Following Ling Qinyu's shout, the fierce dragon instantly dispersed, like a gale blowing away the mist. All of it rippled. Good chance. Su Yun's expression tensed up. His heart was beating wildly. The passion in his eyes seemed to be able to melt everything. He held onto the death sword tightly. His speed reaching its limit, in the blink of an eye, he landed in front of the evil sword's main body. The terrifying evil chi instantly boiled, trembling in all directions. Without a thought, all of the spirit chi in the evil sword actually pounced towards Su Yun. Even Ling Qinyu could not suppress it anymore. The evil sword's main body turned and looked at Su Yun. Its entire body was still pitch black. Other than being in human form, it was different from ordinary people. But under Su Yun's reincarnation eyes, the weakness of the evil sword's main body's will was actually seen through by him. 1. The terrifying death sword was like the mouth of a demon. The sword energy filled the air, bringing with it destruction and destruction. It swallowed the evil sword's main body's will. This sword, Su Yun used the most terrifying destructive power, even if it was the ancestor in front of him. If he were to take this attack, he would immediately die. There was no limit to the strength of the physical body, but so was the destructive power. However, just as the sword was about to land on the main body's will, Su Yun felt the hand holding the death sword go numb. Following that, the death sword directly entered the figure, entering from the top and coming out from the bottom. Su Yun was startled. His eyes opened wide as he looked at the strange scene. Can't destroy it? Why is it like this? Can't destroy it? Su Yun, try using a mental attack. The will is the spirit soul. Maybe a mental attack is possible. Ling Qinyu's weak voice sounded in his ears. Su Yun nodded his head. The will was the consciousness of the spirit, and just relying on brute force to attack, it was impossible to destroy the will. He looked over. The evil chi had already attacked him. He did not have much time left. He immediately opened his eyes and looked towards the will, activating the reincarnation eyes. A terrifying mental power started to surge out from his eyes. Whoosh! Right at this moment, a strange sound that sounded like a gale resounded, and it was accompanied by a series of strange scenes. Su Yun was startled. He raised his eyes to look at the evil sword's will in front of him, only to see that the figure of the will suddenly twisted and turned, transforming into a vortex, and then flew towards a place not far behind him. At the same time, the terrifying evil chi around Su Yun seemed to be attracted by something, flying crazily and finally converging at a point, disappearing. What is this? Su Yun stared blankly at the scene and closed his reincarnation eyes. Not far behind the evil sword's will, another figure appeared, but it was different from the main body's will. This figure was extremely white, snow-white, holy and flawless, but, in this pitch-black world, it did not emit a single bit of light. If one did not look carefully, they would not even be able to discover its existence. The evil sword's will was directly absorbed into the white figure's body, along with the terrifying evil chi around it. It disappeared without a trace. After the main body's will disappeared, the white figure stopped. It turned around and faced Su Yun. After a moment, a light laugh came out. You were instructed by the sword spirit to come and stop me, right? What a pity you came for nothing, because everything you have done is meaningless. It seemed to be from the white figure. You. What are you? Su Yun muttered. Me? I am the new sword spirit. The white figure chuckled. Chapter 1563. A new sword spirit? Su Yun was startled. He felt that he could not think straight. In the air, Ling Qing Yu's weak voice sounded out again. She seemed to be extremely shocked, and her voice was trembling. I never thought that the will just now was not the only will of the evil sword's main body. I never thought that the evil sword's main body would actually give birth to such a perfect will like you. Am I really going to be replaced? Replaced? These two words were like steel needles, fiercely piercing into Su Yun's heart. He anxiously asked, Qing Yu, what exactly is going on? What replacement? What exactly is it? People are always so stupid and ignorant. Didn't I say it just now? I am the sword spirit of the evil sword. The white figure laughed again. The will you saw just now is actually the sword spirit of the evil sword, but it is only an incomplete broken will. It has not yet formed, it is not considered much. Inside this evil sword, after the world was destroyed, it accumulated countless consciousness. After a long period of time, these consciousnesses have formed their own will, hundreds and thousands, countless, but almost all of them are broken, uneven. Only I am different. I am the only one that has not been disturbed by the strange consciousness. My consciousness is extremely unified. I devoured the other broken wills everywhere. To strengthen myself, I originally thought that the internal will had been completely devoured. I did not expect to discover the aura of another will, so I came over to take a look, but I did not expect that a person would actually appear here. How interesting. You must have spent quite a bit of effort to come here, right? The white shadow laughed. The white shadow could actually devour other wills, and from its words, it should have already completed all of its consciousness, and was about to take shape. But Su Yun also thought of an extremely terrifying possibility. He secretly clenched his teeth, and said to the white shadow, Now, are you going to devour the evil sword's former sword spirit? I'm not interested in that. The white shadow laughed. That sword spirit doesn't have much power left, it's extremely weak, and is about to die. It doesn't matter if I swallow it or not. Furthermore, compared to this sword spirit, what I should do now is to kill the spirit of the myriad realms, and let the evil sword eat the spirit of the myriad realms, and in that way, I can obtain the replenishment of the spirit of the myriad realms, and become even stronger. Until I am immortal, isn't that more meaningful? The white shadow suddenly laughed out loud. When Su Yun heard this, his heart jumped, and he broke out in cold sweat. So the world destroyer ominous sword was created by the ominous sword will to strengthen itself? This white figure actually had such a plan, and it said that Qing Yu was about to die? What was going on? Qing Yu. What was going on? What did it mean? What state are you in right now? He asked anxiously. But, in the void, Ling Qing Yu's voice did not resound again. Qing Yu! Qing Yu! Su Yun roared. From the looks of it, the sword spirit has exhausted its strength. It doesn't even have the ability to speak now. Is it just waiting for death? The white figure laughed and walked towards Su Yun. Human, my memories contain the memories of all living beings killed by the sword. I understand all of this, and I understand all of this. You should accept your fate, and know who is the ruler of this world. Don't resist anymore. The sword spirit has dried up, and I've already reached large success. The time is ripe, and this place can no longer trap me. It's time to feast and absorb the myriad worlds. The white shadow became more and more excited. But in the next second, the terrifying death sword suddenly slashed towards it. The white shadow's body did not move, allowing the sword to slash at it. But just as the sword edge was about to touch it, a tyrannical fierce chi spewed out from its body, blocking the sword, making it difficult for it to advance any further. Even though Su Yun's ancestral power was the densest and most ferocious in the myriad worlds, facing this fierce chi, it was extremely powerless. But this was not Su Yun's killing technique. He suddenly raised his head, and the dissipated eyes of Samsara once again activated. At the same time, the great yin-yang technique, true devil god's pupil and other incomparably powerful mental techniques were also activated, attacking the white shadow. The white shadow's body trembled a few times, and retreated half a step, as though it was not prepared for Su Yun's sneak attack. But, with just Su Yun's strength, how could he fight against the consciousness of billions of living beings in the myriad worlds? Facing such a sneak attack, it only retreated half a step, and did not show any other signs of distress. Is that all? Is that all you can do? You want to kill me? With just your strength alone, I'm afraid you won't be able to do it. The white shadow raised its head and looked at Su Yun. On the snow-white figure, 2 holes suddenly appeared. They were 2 holes that looked like eyes. White light rushed out from the holes, straight towards Su Yun. Their eyes met. Su Yun's entire body trembled. But at the same time, the white shadow's body also started to tremble slightly. Eyes of Samsara? The white shadow revealed a surprised expression. Tear everything apart. Su Yun roared, his eyes suddenly releasing a burst of light. The power of Samsara was activated. The white shadow's body rapidly shrank, its mouth releasing a mournful cry. The power of Samsara had actually purified a lot of the consciousness energy in its body, allowing them to feel proud and free. The attack on the white shadow was extremely strong, its body could not help but retreat, and the fierce chi also rushed towards Su Yun, especially towards his eyes. The fierce chi was like acid, wanting to attack Su Yun. Su Yun had no choice but to stop the activation of the eyes of Samsara, but just at this time, the white shadow seemed to have seized the opportunity and attacked Su Yun. The entire world of the evil sword started to distort. Countless strange black holes were produced in the world, but the black holes did not produce any suction force. On the contrary, they released countless terrifying fierce chi. In the blink of an eye, the intensity of the fierce chi was actually 100 times stronger than before. Su Yun immediately felt his entire body turn cold, his entire body trembling, and the ancestor's power was also being devoured crazily. In this situation, if the ancestor's subordinates were to touch the fierce chi, they would definitely die on the spot, their souls would not exist, and the ancestor would not be able to exist for long. Su Yun was the same. There's no way to retreat. Su Yun understood, the white shadows had already planned to wipe him out. If he did not make a move, he would not have the chance. Su Yun took a deep breath, growled and rushed forward, withstanding the terrifying fierce chi. He advanced towards the white shadow. The eyes of Samsara opened, staring straight at the white shadow, allowing the fierce chi to corrode him. He did not close it again. For Qinger, for Qian Mei, for Xianli, for Luluo, for Xiao Chua, for Mu Yu, for Octagon Aniseed, for the Sect Master, for the Sword Elder, for the Sword Ancestor, for Qingyu. For the sake of the people he cared about, this time, he had to destroy this will. Otherwise, everything would end, and the mistakes of his previous life would repeat themselves. The heavens would not give him a third chance. He roared at the top of his lungs, the power of reincarnation surging in his eyes, crazily eroding the white shadow. The white shadow trembled violently, releasing one painful roar after another, its body continuously retreating, but the speed at which it retreated was not fast. On the other hand, Su Yun was trying his best to activate the eyes of Samsara. The ancestor's power and body were being consumed crazily by the fierce qi. In the blink of an eye, he was already close to the boundary point, and his strength was about to be exhausted. Human, although you are consuming my willpower, your willpower is stronger than the willpower that you are eliminating. You are not my match, and sooner or later, you will die under my power, and once you die, as long as I devour your willpower, I will become even stronger than I am now. Therefore, I do not feel disgusted by your actions. On the contrary, your actions will only hasten your death. The white shadows will release waves of low laughter, as though it was mocking Su Yun. Is that so? Su Yun suddenly said, and then his body disappeared. The will of the white shadow was startled. But in the next second it discovered that the evil sword's body had actually distorted, and then turned into a field of white. Countless godlike existences stood in front of it, all of them glaring at it. Is this an illusion technique? The will of the white shadow frowned. That's right. Amongst the gods a figure walked out. It was Su Yun. Your illusion technique is actually effective against me? The will of the white shadow was shocked. I already have the strength of the peak ancestor, and you are just a spirit body, the new will of the evil sword, and the foundation of your formation is the will of the 10,000 spirits, but among the will of the 10,000 spirits, no one can be stronger than me. Even if you fuse them together, you are still not my match. I can easily drag you into the illusion. Su Yun said in a deep voice. But I have already sensed that this is just an illusion. You cannot trap me here forever. Even if I am here, what can you do to me? The will of the white shadow was not afraid at all. Who told you that I can't do anything to you? Su Yun's face suddenly congealed. The countless of gods all opened their eyes wide, staring at the will of the white shadow, and their eyes were actually the eyes of Samsara. The will of the white shadow let out a scream of fear and pain. How was this possible? According to the memories that it had absorbed, the will of the white shadow knew that there was only one pair of eyes of Samsara in this world, and it was refined from the eyes of the reincarnation god ancestor by an ancient family in the great desolate era. There was only one pair of eyes, and it was passed down from generation to generation in the family. Even if Su Yun obtained the eyes of Samsara, he would only have one pair. Could it be that this person could even create the pain brought about by the eyes of Samsara? The will of the white shadow roared, and its body continued to shrink. However, it did not remain indifferent, and instead used a thunderous voice to roar. Following that, the entire illusion started to tremble. Outside the illusion, Su Yun was still activating the Yin-Yang Wanxiang spell, but he discovered that the inner world of the evil sword seemed to be experiencing a magnitude 12 earthquake, and was trembling crazily. What was going on? He frowned, feeling that something was wrong. Just then, a burst of energy suddenly struck Su Yun's body. The energy was extremely strange, as though it came from outside the evil sword world. Su Yun's body moved slightly. He felt that his entire body was filled with energy, and his condition had recovered to its peak. Qingyu. Su Yun was startled. But after that, he could no longer feel Ling Qingyu's aura, and his heart couldn't help but feel a sense of loss. His mind was in a mess. What was going on? How was Qingyu now? However, without waiting for him to think further, a terrifying pressure suddenly rushed towards him, causing Su Yun's body to be directly knocked out. The ominous sword world suddenly exploded, causing Su Yun to be sent flying, landing outside the sword eye. He flipped over and stared at the sword eye, only to see that the will of the white shadow was standing at the sword eye. At the same time, the entire sword started to move, the sword sheath's world trembled crazily, and a large amount of space was torn apart. Seeing that, blood flowed out of Su Yun's eyes. Only when the sword spirit was completely suppressed would the evil sword be able to break through the sword sheath. Chapter 1564. Crash. Cold wind spewed out from the sword eye of the evil sword. It was the accumulated resentment of the souls that had died under the evil sword. With a move of the evil sword, its aura was released, instantly passing through the boundary outline and spreading throughout the myriad realms. Even the myriad realms, including the immortal realm, were instantly frozen. The temperature dropped rapidly, the vegetation immediately withered, the weak life forms were all frozen, the heaven and earth turned pale white, the life force disappeared, and the cold gradually rose. In less than 100 breaths of time, the entire myriad realms was already in the scene of winter. However, the chill did not stop. It was getting more and more intense, and the situation was getting more and more terrifying. The sword sheath was located in the immortal realm, and currently, the immortal realm was the most severely affected by the evil sword. When Ling Qingyu was no longer able to suppress the evil sword's main body, the evil sword's power began to overflow 100 times or 1,000 times. The entire immortal realm was instantly frozen, and the immortals who had yet to leave the immortal realm turned into ice in an instant. The existences at the peak of the spirit god realm and above were still able to resist the cold, but the cold continued to increase, and even they were gradually unable to resist it. They had no choice but to take advantage of the fact that the ice had not completely frozen them, and quickly left. They did not have the time to take away their disciples, family, friends, or even their belongings, because if they were slightly slower, even the experts of the returning ruins would have to stay in this dusty world forever. Compared to the immortal realm, the other realms were not having a good time either, especially the realm with the lowest strength like the Sky Martial realm. The people who lived in this realm were all people who had just touched the spirit cultivation, and most of them were ordinary commoners. The sudden cold made it hard for them to accept, and even the blazing sun floating above their heads dimmed in a split second. What followed was countless landslides, earthquakes, tsunamis, and natural disasters. In the blink of an eye, countless realms welcomed the end of the world, and turned into hell on earth. Su Yun spat out the blood in his mouth. The eyes of Samsara stared straight at the white while standing at the sword eye. It looked at Su Yun quietly, then raised its hand, and the incomparably large evil sword finally moved. It rose slowly, and the huge sword edge, whose top could not be seen, directly tore through the world of the sword sheath and crashed into the vast and boundless celestial world. This huge sword edge was like a divine dragon that could break the sky. Once it appeared, it directly split the celestial world. The boundless sword intent swept through the entire immortal world like a destructive storm. Everything in its path was reduced to ashes. Whether it was the powerful spirit beasts, the thick cloud mountains, or the powerful immortals, no one could resist this terrifying sword intent. At the gate of the immortal realm. Quick! Hurry up and leave the immortal realm! A white-haired old man shouted. He was the immortal. The last time Su Yun went to the peak of the immortal realm to ask him about the evil sword, he had vaguely felt that something was wrong. He knew that Su Yun had the evil sword in his hands, and asking about it meant that something had happened to the evil sword, so he had informed his friends and relatives early in the morning to quickly leave the immortal realm. Who would have thought that this matter would spread like wildfire, and the power on Su Yun's side would also spread the news that the evil sword might not be able to be controlled, but most of the immortals were unwilling to believe it. If the evil sword lost control, then the myriad realms would be destroyed, and the realm outline would be destroyed. Although the myriad realms were big, to the evil sword, it was just a single strike. What if the news was fake? Wouldn't it be a waste of effort? However, there was always a portion of people who were willing to believe it. Especially with this change, there were more and more people who believed it. The supreme expert had the ability to directly tear open space and pass through the realm, but ordinary immortals could not do it, and it was impossible for the immortal to send away all of his close friends and disciples. Helpless, he could only bring these people to the gate of the immortal realm. Unexpectedly, the gate of the immortal realm was surrounded by countless immortals. They crowded towards the gate of the immortal realm. The scene was extremely chaotic and noisy. With death approaching, the fear in people's hearts surged out. They became anxious and uneasy, and their tempers naturally became irritable. With so many people squeezed together, there were many conflicts, and there were even many people who fought. Those with high cultivation were extremely tyrannical. They could just directly cut the queue. Those with weak strength dared not say anything and could only obediently wait. The scene was so chaotic. The immortals did not follow the order, greatly reducing the speed of passing through the gate of the immortal realm. The efficiency was not good, and only more people would not be able to leave the immortal realm. All of you, stop! Finally, the immortal master could not stand it anymore and roared loudly. He was a fake primogenitor with a small world inside his body. With this roar, the small world revolved, and the primogenitor's aura was released, shocking the entire scene. Even the ascended gods were frozen by this roar. Everyone looked at the old man in unison. Some of them did not know him, but there were still many who knew him and knew his name. Immortal Master! It's Master Immortal Master! Master Immortal Master is here, we are saved! People shouted in joy and cupped their fists. Some even kowtowed to the Immortal Master. They were extremely happy as if they had seen their savior. Some people thought that the Immortal Master had the power of a primogenitor and could definitely solve the current predicament. However, this was not the case. He was only a fake primogenitor. Right now, many people did not even know what was going on in the immortal realm. If they knew that this was a sign that the ominous sword was about to attack, they might not be so happy. Because in front of the ominous sword, the primogenitor was like an ant in front of a giant. Master, Immortal Master, what happened in the immortal realm? Why did it become so cold? Did some almighty figure make things difficult for them? Someone asked loudly. Pairs of eyes looked at the Immortal Master, waiting for his answer. However, the Immortal Master shook his head helplessly. Then, he took out a magic treasure from his space bag and shouted at the few ascendant gods who had just arrived, I need the help of 20 great immortals to tear open the gate of the immortal realm for me so that more immortals can leave the immortal realm quickly. Who is willing to step forward? The ascended god realm powerhouses looked at each other and finally stood up one by one. The Immortal Master took out his magic treasure and the great immortals immediately used their power to support it. The magic treasure turned into hooks and pulled the two sides of the gate of the immortal realm. They began to tear it apart. The aura of space surged and the gate of the immortal realm immediately swayed left and right. In the end, it was forcibly pulled back dozens of meters, which was several times larger than before. The gate of the immortal realm opened and immortals rushed in like a tide. Seeing this, the Immortal Master heaved a sigh of relief. Then, he shouted at his disciples and close friends, Go quickly, find a way to go to the true demon realm. Seeing this, the people at the peak of the immortal realm immediately ran. One of the great immortals still did not understand the situation and asked the Immortal Master, Immortal Master, what happened? The immortal realm. What happened to the immortal realm? What happened to the immortal realm? The immortal realm is finished. Not only the immortal realm, but also the myriad realms. The Immortal Master shook his head and rushed toward the gate of the immortal realm. However, at this moment, a terrifying sword intent swept over from afar. It was so fast that it made people's hair stand on end. The immortals who were rushing toward the gate of the immortal realm did not even have time to react before they were engulfed by the sword intent. Their bodies and souls were torn into particles and they died immediately. The power of nirvanic and withering swept over and the temperature dropped rapidly. It was several times stronger than before. Even the Immortal Master's body began to form layers of frost. What is that? The people who had yet to escape looked at this scene in horror, and were all dumbfounded. In the distant sky, a sky-piercing sword shadow appeared. The sword intent was overflowing and the blade was sharp. The scene was incomparably grand and extremely terrifying. The ominous sword. It really appeared. The immortal master widened his eyes and looked at this scene in disbelief. Quick, run! The immortals panicked. At this moment, everyone was desperately squeezing toward the immortal gate. Even though the immortal gate had been opened, it was still extremely crowded. It was difficult for an expert to pass through the immortal gate. He even cast a spell and attacked the crowded immortal gate. Hey! What are you doing? What? We're about to die, what else can we do? The immortal did not care about what the people around him thought and rushed toward the immortal gate. However, before he could get close, he was hit by a spell and died instantly. His soul was shattered and his body fell from the sky. The crowd looked and saw that it was the immortal master who attacked. The elder immortal looked at the immortals expressionlessly and said, "The ominous sword is going to destroy the world. Everyone will not be able to escape death. Even if we leave through this door, between you and me, it will only be a matter of who dies first and who dies later. I will stay here and buy time for you. If you want to leave, then leave obediently and abide by the rules. If anyone dares to act tyrannically and break the order, I will send you away before I die." The immortal master's words immediately shocked the crowd. However, his words also shocked those who did not know what was going on. Ominous sword? Could it be that all of this was brought about by the ominous sword? Could it be that the rumor was true? Whoosh! The sword will rushed over, bringing with it the power to destroy everything as it charged over. The immortal master did not waste any more words. He suddenly turned around and raised both his hands. A golden mirror appeared between his palms and spread out with terrifying momentum. The sword will instantly collided with the mirror, but was blocked by the mirror. The immortal master's arms trembled violently. The moment the sword intent hit the mirror, he opened his mouth and spat out blood. After a few breaths, cracks appeared on the mirror. The small world in his body operated crazily, and the ancestral aura was like burning straws. He knew that he could not hold on for long. He could have just left, but he gave up because there were still many people who did not leave in time. The immortal master turned his head with all his might and looked at the people from the immortal gate. There were still a few proud disciples standing there. They refused to leave for a long time and looked at their master with tears in their eyes. "Go!" the immortal master shouted weakly. They knelt down and kowtowed to the immortal master a few times. Then, they turned around and left with difficulty. These disciples were not stupid. They knew that they were helpless against the ominous sword. They understood the immortal master better. Once he decided to stay, he would not change his mind. Since he chose to stay, no one could make him leave. The immortal master's arms trembled even more and the cracks on the mirror became bigger and bigger. At the immortal gate, there were still tens of thousands of immortals who did not leave in time. The immortal gate was only so big and transporting people took time. At this moment, 2 ascended God Realm immortals also flew over. They pressed their hands on the immortal master's shoulders and transferred what little power they had left to him. The immortal master felt the power coming from his left and right. He panted heavily and looked at the 2 of them. Then, he smiled bitterly. "Are you 2 staying as well? There's no point. Sir has chosen to stay, why should we leave?" The 2 of them said in unison. "I'm different from you 2. The immortal master's smile became even more bitter. His eyes fell into deep reminiscence. "I have already escaped once." As soon as the voice fell, the huge sword shadow once again erupted with a circle of terrifying sword intent. This sword intent directly shook the void, shattered the outline of the world, and rushed towards the next world. The other forces, like stormy waves that could destroy everything, swept over here. Compared to this new sword intent, The difference between the previous sword intent and this new one was like the difference between a baby and a giant. It was tens of thousands of times stronger. Even the space seemed to be destroyed, and the immortal world was completely destroyed. The immortal chi was not even worth mentioning in front of it. The primogenitor's aura was like a paper window that would break upon touch. Seeing this, the immortal master smiled. There was no bitterness in his smile, but more helplessness. He gently closed his eyes and gave up resisting. He knew that he was going to sleep together with the entire immortal world. The ominous sword was finally going to show its edge to the myriad of worlds. Chapter 1565. In front of the sword eye of the evil sword, Su Yun held onto the death sword in his hand tightly, and walked towards the sword eye step by step. The will of the white main body stood in front of the sword with his arms crossed over his chest. He looked at the man in front of him with a playful expression and chuckled. Everything has already begun. With that said, he opened his arms, faced the sky, and suddenly roared. Immediately after, countless streams of light appeared in the sky. Like a torrent, they surged towards his body. His body, which had shrunk drastically after being purified by the eye of reincarnation, actually increased at an astonishing speed under the support of these streams of light. In the blink of an eye, he had become nearly 2 meters tall. Su Yun's face twisted. He took a step forward, and rushed towards the evil sword's new will without caring about anything else. He could feel that those streams of light were the countless living beings of the immortal world. They had died under the evil sword, and all of them had been absorbed by the will of the evil sword, becoming nourishment for him to increase his own strength. The immortal world was the strongest realm in the myriad realms. In this huge realm, there were countless experts with extraordinary abilities. Their soul power was incomparable. At this moment, the will of the evil sword was unprecedentedly strong. But Su Yun had no way out. The immortal world was already dead, and next would be the spirit realm, ultimate martial world, Wanhua realm, evil realm, sky martial continent, underworld, true devil realm. He slashed forward with his sword, but the will of the main body did not fluctuate in the slightest. The will raised its hand, and a circle of lines appeared on its palm. It was the aura of the evil sword. The evil sword had broken free from its restraints, and he was already able to easily control the chi, which instantly exploded from his palm, transforming into billions of black light beams that pierced towards Su Yun. Bang! A black light exploded from the death sword, circles of ferocious ancestral power surged out, the eye of reincarnation activated, blood flowed out from his eyes. Su Yun did not hold back, and smashed forward. The death light turned into a shield, blocking the fierce chi, but the fierce chi was extremely terrifying. It actually shattered the shield formed by the death light. Su Yun's body was pierced through by a large number of eyeball-sized eyes. Most likely his small world was also damaged, and he was severely injured. However, he did not stop because of that. Under his control, the death sword fiercely slashed towards the white figure. The white shadow had no choice but to dodge, but he did not want to continue playing with Su Yun. As long as he devoured Su Yun's will, he believed that his will would reach a new height, and at the same time, it would be easy for him to devour the will of all living beings in the myriad realms. The sword eyes spewed out a dense and terrifying fierce chi. As though they were attracted by the will of the white shadow, they surged out like a tide. They did not attack Su Yun as their target, but directly poured out, pervading the already dead immortal world. Su Yun was struck by the dense evil chi to the point that it was difficult for him to get close to the sword eye. At the moment, the sword eye was like a gigantic fountain, the evil chi was like spring water. His condition was already extremely bad, and it was even more difficult to get close. The entire immortal dimension had already been invaded by ferocious energy. The world was covered in darkness, and not the slightest bit of hope or life could be seen. Only Su Yun's eyes seemed to still maintain their luster, the eyes of reincarnation did not close. The white shadow suddenly leaped, his body twisted, and within the vast fierce chi, it transformed into a gigantic mouth, and rushed towards Su Yun. Su Yun raised his head and looked at the falling white mouth. In that instant, he felt as though his eyes were blinded by a large hand, his blood vessels were blocked by a stone, his soul was shackled, and his strength was sealed. He was completely suppressed. Absolute power. The surrounding fierce chi suddenly solidified, completely trapping his body. He was unable to move through the fierce chi, unable to move, and even breathing became difficult. This was the will of the strongest power in the myriad realms. The suppression from the strongest will, no one could contend against him head-on. In the end, fate was not something that a person could control. The God in your minds is me. The heaven and earth you speak of is also me. The supreme Tao you believe in is also me. I am your ruler. I created this heaven and earth, bestowed upon you the myriad heavens and earth, allowing you to survive in this heaven and earth. I gave you your lives. Now I want to take your lives back. How dare you resist? That's right. I will absorb you and imprint you into the center of my mind. All of this is just a beginning and an end. The white shadow's voice came from the big mouth. There was a hint of seriousness, a hint of playfulness, a hint of ridicule, and also a hint of mockery. But to Su Yun it was so ear-piercing. He suddenly raised his head, the pupil in the eye of samsara suddenly shattered, the skin on his body also cracked open, blood seeped out from the cracked skin, like magma melting ice, completely dispersing the fierce chi that imprisoned him. Even if the myriad realms were created by you, the living beings of the myriad realms should not be controlled by you. Everyone is free and has the right to live in this world. He was like a peerless god as he stood in the middle of the fierce chi, looking down at the strongest will that had fallen down. An inviolable majesty and killing intent surged out like a tide. From the broken eye of samsara, an incomparable samsara power erupted, shooting straight towards the strongest will, continuously purifying his consciousness. The fierce chi in the entire immortal world seemed to have been stirred up by Su Yun's sudden change. The strongest will also sensed that something was wrong with Su Yun, but at this critical juncture, he did not stop. Even if Su Yun released the power of the eye of samsara, so what? He had just absorbed the will of all the experts in the immortal world. The current him was unprecedentedly powerful, and with just the eye of samsara, it was impossible to destroy him in such a short period of time. But right at that moment, a terrifying blood intent suddenly surged around Su Yun's body. The death sword broke inch by inch, turning into dregs and fusing into his blood. This peerless sword that was once able to contend against the fierce sword and suppress it had actually broken itself today and fused into its master. At the same time, the temperature on Su Yun's body suddenly rose sharply. His cracked skin actually ignited with terrifying flames. The flames were like armor, pervading his entire body. When the big mouth fell down and wrapped around Su Yun, in just a few breaths of time, the white shadow's body was immediately burned by the flames. Its entire body returned to its original state and shot out. It released a miserable scream, and only after a long while did it recover, and looked at Su Yun in disbelief. Soul power? Will power? Did you ignite your soul and will? The white shadows will sensed Su Yun's abnormality and cried out involuntarily. Humans have their own nature, and swords have their own spirit. Since the master is going to die, the sword will follow the master. Su Yun raised his right hand and looked at the flames on his right hand. It automatically condensed into a slender fire sword. The shape of the sword was exactly the same as the broken death sword. He couldn't help but think back to the scene of the devil ancestor fighting against the fierce sword. He would rather die than bow. He didn't expect that today it would be his turn. And when he burned his own soul and will to make his last stand, What he didn't expect was that the death sword did not hesitate to destroy its own sword body, releasing its sword spirit and fusing with Su Yun's body, becoming one with him. In my opinion, you are stronger than the fierce sword. He laughed softly, but at this moment, he had an unprecedented confidence. He leaped up like a peerless god of war, holding the terrifying sword. He rushed towards the fierce sword's will. The flames on his body were like a huge wave, spreading out in all directions. This was the cultivation technique used by the devil ancestor. Back then, when he was fighting against the fierce sword, he had also burned his own soul and will, releasing all of his potential. At that moment, Su Yun's cultivation was no longer at the ancestor realm. He had finally stepped into the ancestor realm, and reached an unprecedented level. If you plan to control all of these spirits in your hands, then, I can only tell you, you can't control me. Su Yun held onto the fire sword formed from the death sword's sword spirit, and with the power to break the heavens, in the darkness, a dazzling fiery light streaked across. The fierce swords wanted to use its fierce chi to block, but he was shocked to discover that the omnipotent fierce chi was actually broken by Su Yun's blood fire. That sword spirit? The evil swords stared at the sword in Su Yun's hand in shock, and suddenly, he seemed to have understood something. This sword once absorbed the power of my body, and took it for itself? That's right. It used to be a nameless sword, but today, its name will shake the world and become the sword that saves the world. Su Yun roared, the eyes of reincarnation released blood fire, his entire body pouncing towards the evil sword's will. The terrifying blood fire was like shackles binding the evil sword's will. Ah! The ominous sword released a mournful roar. The blood fire crazily burned his body. He was completely an incarnation of will, and Su Yun used his own soul and consciousness as the price to burn it. The power produced was shockingly able to restrain him. Boom! The terrifying ferocious aura of the entire immortal world condensed and transformed into an incomparably huge hand. Just a single finger of this hand was comparable to the size of the ultimate martial world, and the hand pulled out the gigantic sword body. Holding onto the sword tightly, it fiercely thrusted towards Su Yun. Just the might of the sword was enough to tear Su Yun apart. However, he still refused to let go, as if he wanted to merge with the will of the ominous sword. No one can stop me. You! They were all going to die. The 10,000 worlds shall become my nourishment. The evil swords screamed. Bang! The evil sword's gigantic sword body directly smashed onto Su Yun's body, as if using a diamond drill to smash a grain of rice, but the terrifying power was directly transmitted from the gigantic body to Su Yun's body. Without any suspense, Su Yun's body immediately shattered, not even leaving a trace behind, and instantly turned into smoke and disappeared. However, he did not die because of this. After his body was destroyed, underneath his body there was actually a person formed from blood and fire. This blood and fire person actually burned the tip of the evil sword until it was completely red, and both of his arms used all of his strength to suppress the evil sword's will, like a shackle, not allowing it to escape. How could this be? The evil swords opened its eyes wide, looking at the scene in disbelief. Finally, on Su Yun's back, where the evil sword's tip had pierced, a white light actually lit up. The white light was like a shield, preventing the evil sword's power from continuing to invade Su Yun's body. This is the source energy of the evil sword? The evil sword's will was in disbelief, but very quickly, he understood that this was the power that Ling Qingyu had given to Su Yun, the moment she lost control of the evil sword. And Su Yun had long known of this power, but he had always hidden it. His goal was to use it to block the evil sword's main body. Under the burning of Su Yun's blood and fire, the evil swords gradually withered. His power was quickly disappearing, but he did not die. He still held on to the evil sword that could destroy the myriad worlds. He knew that relying on the evil sword would not be able to kill Su Yun, so he chose to give up. Burn! Burn! I'll let you know what despair is! The evil swords will roared. His pale white body started to distort, but a burst of energy suddenly spread out from his body, causing the evil sword that was pressing down on Su Yun's body to suddenly move. Su Yun was shocked. He raised his head to look, only to see the gigantic hand holding onto the evil sword, fiercely thrusting towards the immortal world. The majestic stream of air fiercely struck the broken boundary of the immortal world. The gigantic evil sword itself directly smashed into the immortal world, fiercely smashing towards the next realm. Crap! Su Yun's heart jumped. Dong! The spirit world below was immediately attacked by the evil sword. In almost a breath's time, the spirit world was destroyed, and everything turned into ashes. The consciousness of countless living beings turned into streams of light and flew toward the evil sword's main body to replenish it. Chapter 1566. In a huge spirit world, the number of living beings contained within was almost incalculable, and the experts inside were not any weaker than the immortal world. However, none of them were able to withstand the attack of the evil sword, and all of them died miserably under the evil sword. This realm directly raised the evil sword's will energy to the state before the eyes of Samsara burned it. Ha 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 ha, do you see that? You are powerless to reverse the situation. You don't want to be dominated by me? I'm afraid not. The will laughed out loud. At that moment, his laughter was accentuated, and the power he used to struggle free from Su Yun became stronger and stronger. But he did not stop, and continued to drive the evil sword towards the next realm. The spirit world was like a piece of glass that had been smashed by a sledgehammer. Not a single piece was intact, and everything on top of it had turned into ashes. As for the sledgehammer, it continued to howl as it smashed towards the next realm. The terrifying chi wave and the terrifying pressure caused the void to shatter. Before the evil sword even arrived, the next realm had already shattered into pieces. Just as Su Yun was in a daze, the evil sword had directly destroyed 3 realms, and all the living beings on these realms had turned into nourishment, nourishing the evil sword's will. His body became even more robust, even stronger, and even more terrifying. The evil sword headed towards the 4th realm. With its speed and terror, it would not take more than an incense stick of time to destroy the myriad realms. There was no time. He had to destroy the evil sword's will as soon as possible, otherwise everything would be over. Su Yun's burning body suddenly became more vigorous, crazily burning the will, but the speed was too slow. Before it could eat much, the evil sword's will would destroy the world to replenish it. If it destroyed all the realms in one go, the will would increase to an unprecedented height, and even if Su Yun used his own soul and consciousness as the price to counterattack, he would not be able to contend against it. Clang! At this moment, the gigantic evil sword that was falling down suddenly stopped. The gigantic sword trembled for a moment and released an earth-shattering sound. The sound was so loud that it seemed to be able to shatter a realm. What? The evil sword's will widened its eyes as it looked towards the bottom of the evil sword in disbelief. Su Yun also felt extremely shocked. Looking towards the direction of the voice, the scene caused him to be completely shocked. At the bottom of the evil sword, there were tens of thousands of people densely packed together. There were people at the peak of the spirit profound god, experts of the origin ruins, experts of the god realm, and even 2 ancestors. There was a large formation set up there. The spirit profound god and the people of the ruins stood on the formation point. The experts of the sealed god realm stood at the eye of the formation, cooperating with the formation to resist the falling ominous sword, and the 2 ancestors released all of their strength, transforming into giants, blocking the falling ominous sword. However, everyone seemed to be struggling. All of their faces were flushed red, they gasped for breath, the energy in their bodies splashing everywhere, and in less than 4 breaths of time, the spirit god existences could no longer hold on, many of their skins started to crack, and after 2 breaths of time, a weak immortal's body directly shattered, his soul dissipated, and the pressure from the evil sword continued to increase. These immortals had all received the news in advance, and had organized themselves to deal with the impending ominous sword. This was a realm filled with crystals, and the energy here was extremely abundant. Although it could not compare to the immortal realm, it was not too bad. Everyone, hold on. We absolutely can't let the ominous sword do as it pleases. The 2 progenitors shouted. Some were afraid, some were determined, some were unafraid of death, and some were filled with regret. But at this moment there was no way out. Retreat meant death. Finally, someone saw the red and white figure beside the huge hand at the front of the evil sword. What's that? One of the ancestors opened his eyes wide and stared at Su Yun. The powerful energy that came from there made them feel incomparable fear. It was a power that could truly split the heavens and earth, a power that could truly create 10,000 worlds. Aunt! You can't stop me. It was one thing for the evil sword to be restrained by Su Yun, but now, a group of immortals had jumped out to stop him. How could he not be angry? The huge hand that was holding the evil sword was controlled by the will, and used all of its strength to press down. The evil sword seemed to feel the anger from the will, and released all of its sword force. The enormous sword might instantly shattered the entire realm into pieces, and the formation and the people on it were also instantly turned into ashes, disappearing into thin air. Even the 2 ancestors were covered in cracks, on the verge of death, and finally died under the terrifying sword might of the evil sword. Splitting the heavens and breaking the earth, shattering the cycle of reincarnation, manipulating fate, ignoring everything, who could control the evil sword. This terrifying power was not something that immortals could imagine. The evil sword was the heavens, the gods, how could humans contend against it? The destruction of this realm, the death of a group of elite immortals, including 2 ancestors, if the evil sword's will were to absorb them, then, his strength would immediately surpass Su Yun's current strength, and he would be able to break free from Su Yun's restraints. At that time, no one would be able to suppress Su Yun anymore. It's over. Everything is over. The evil swords will release a complacent laugh, its upper half immediately split into a large mouth, with the intention of swallowing the dead people that had turned into flowing light to increase its own strength. But just then, Su Yun suddenly let go of him. What? Want to escape? The evil swords will sneered. It had regained its freedom. How could it let Su Yun leave just like that? To the consciousness of this realm, Su Yun was obviously even more important, because he was the only existence that surpassed the ancestors. But just at this moment, a shocking scene appeared. Su Yun broke away from the evil sword's will, turned around, opened his mouth, and suddenly sucked in. The flowing light that flew over was directly sucked into his body. His blood-fire body immediately became strong and exuberant. He actually imitated the evil sword's will and absorbed the consciousness of the people of this realm. No! The evil sword's will was shocked. The current Su Yun was also a body of consciousness. If the evil sword could absorb it, then he could too. It was just that the evil sword did not expect Su Yun to do that. But like this, the evil sword did not have any misgivings. He immediately turned and rushed towards the sword eye. At the same time, the huge evil sword controlled the evil sword to slash at Su Yun without holding back. Su Yun, who had completely absorbed the consciousness of the realm, had become countless times stronger. His blood-fire body was even more terrifying. His entire body was covered in fire armor. In his hands was the death sword spirit formed from the blood fire. The eyes of reincarnation in his eyes seemed to have been opened again. With blood and fire as the foundation, they continued to spin, the pupils reflecting the mysterious light of reincarnation, and behind his back, a pair of gigantic fire bone wings appeared. It was the mantra after the consciousness was strengthened. Rumble! The evil sword fiercely slashed towards him. But he did not block it. He could not block it. Ling Qing Yu's power was only on his back. It was impossible for him to completely defend against the evil sword. Furthermore, at this moment, he did not plan to block it. Even though he had become stronger, in front of the evil sword, this strength was still incomparably small. Furthermore, his blood and soul were about to be exhausted. He did not have the time to tangle with the evil sword's will any longer. Su Yun rushed forward, his body suddenly transforming into a gigantic fire chain, instantly wrapping around the evil sword's will. I've said it before, you can't trap me. The evil sword's will roared again and again. Carrying the evil sword, it continued to attack the next realm. Dong, 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 dong. In the blink of an eye, the evil sword had broken through over 100 realms, and all of the consciousness of these realms were absorbed by him. Su Yun did not snatch it, because the evil sword was always waiting for Su Yun to take action to snatch the consciousness, because as long as Su Yun stopped binding the evil sword's will, the evil sword's will would be able to freely control the evil sword to kill Su Yun. If he was bound, he would have nowhere to attack, and if he was not careful, the evil sword would accidentally injure his own will. The absorption of the consciousness of over 100 realms allowed the evil sword's will to grow stronger and stronger. The terrifying power of consciousness continued to shake the current Su Yun. But Su Yun, who had turned into a fire chain, did not have any reaction. He had been tightly binding the evil sword's will, as though he wanted to trap him forever. However, both he and the evil sword's will knew that it was impossible. Ice World? Just then, the ice-cold interface suddenly stimulated Su Yun. This interface only lasted for a breath of time in front of Su Yun's consciousness, and then it disappeared into thin air. After this interface, it was the interface that Su Yun was familiar with, the ultimate martial world. The ultimate martial world was connected to the Wanhua realm, and the ultimate martial sacred plane was also within the realm outline of the ultimate martial world. Although many people related to Su Yun in the ultimate martial world had retreated to the true devil realm, the master Subhoodie had not left yet. He said that this time, he did not want to escape. Su Yun was unable to convince him, but no matter what, he was not willing to see his master die under the evil sword. The flames loosened, and quickly transformed back into Su Yun's original appearance. Have you given up? The evil sword's will laughed out loud, and then its body started to squirm, gradually turning into a big mouth, and actually wanted to bite Su Yun. Kachi! Half of Su Yun's body was directly bitten by the big mouth. The blood and fire reflected off each other. Su Yun clenched his teeth, but did not escape. Instead, he grabbed onto the evil sword's will with one hand, the flames in his eyes erupted, and his entire body surged with anger. You want to devour me? Dominate me? I've already said it, you can't dominate me. Furthermore, I want to dominate you. When the roar came out, Su Yun suddenly opened his mouth, and fiercely bit towards the evil sword's will. The flames on his body were like the mouth of a fierce beast, and started to tear apart the evil sword's will. They no longer chose to burn their will, but to devour this enormous will. Ridiculous! How laughable! You want to devour me with just you. It's still not certain who will devour who. The evil swords will laughed out loud, and then saw the huge murderer raise the evil sword again, smashing towards the next interface. The ultimate martial world welcomed its final moment. The sword of extermination pierced through the boundary line and descended from the sky. The sword pressure began to tear apart the earth, evaporate the seawater, and crush all living things. But just at this moment, a circle of green light suddenly erupted from the center of the ultimate martial world. Following that, a large tree quickly grew from the place where the green light erupted, and in the blink of an eye, it turned into a huge tree that could support the sky, and the top of the tree directly supported the falling evil sword, firmly supporting it. "Teacher!" Su Yun turned his head to look, and roared again and again. The Bodhi tree was formed by the master's subhoodie. However, even so, it was difficult to defend against the attack of the evil sword. The big tree instantly collapsed, and was split apart by the evil sword. The master's subhoodie had fallen. "I will devour you!" The flames on Su Yun's body seemed to have been poured with a bucket of oil, burning more and more vigorously. "Fool, you're actually accelerating the burning of your soul and consciousness. Although you can strengthen your willpower for a short period of time, you won't be able to hold on for much longer. I think I only need to hold on for another 20 breaths, and the battle between us will end. But before that, let me have a good meal." The evil swords laughed loudly and allowed the sword to continue descending. Boom! The ultimate martial world that was flourishing for a time was instantly shattered. Countless living beings perished and turned into ashes, becoming the dust of history. After piercing through the boundary line, a dense wave of life force swept over, resisting the terrifying evil chi released by the evil sword. Wanhua realm. He had finally arrived at the Wanhua realm. No. Just then, Su Yun suddenly let out a mournful scream. The entire Wanhua realm was already empty. Everyone had been taken away by the Realm Master, but the Realm Master did not leave as Su Yun had said. On top of the gigantic world tree, the frail figure stood there quietly. She raised her pure eyes and looked at the descending peerless sword. There was no fear, no despair, no sorrow on her beautiful face, only helplessness, and a sweet smile that was revealed towards Su Yun. "It's really good to meet you. Regardless of whether I win or lose this time, at least I'm standing in front of you," she said softly. Her voice was so weak that it seemed to drift away with the wind, but Su Yun could hear it clearly, and it struck straight at his soul. Her body suddenly split open, transforming into specks of green light that started to sprinkle onto the gigantic world tree. The world tree that looked like it was about to wither once again flourished, and changed at a speed visible to the naked eye. "Ancestor of nature! You are the reincarnation of the ancestor of nature!" The evil swords let out a mournful roar. The world tree turned into a gigantic sword sheath and soared into the sky, covering the evil sword, directly covering the terrifying sword body. Chapter 1567. Dong. The sword scabbard covered his body, and the power of the evil sword immediately dissipated. The evil sword brought the sword body down, but it did not shatter the Wanhua realm. Instead, a speck of light below fiercely resisted the evil sword. Su Qing'er. She was also in the Wanhua realm. However, even with the realm tree as the scabbard to seal the majority of the evil sword's power, the remaining power was not something that Su Qing'er could contend against. However, she did not want to see the evil sword destroy the myriad worlds, just like that. So many people had sacrificed themselves to stop the evil sword, and as the ancestor, did she really want to wait for the evil sword to descend in the last true devil realm, for history to be shattered, and for everything to cease to exist? Even if she could watch all of this, what about Su Yun? How could she watch as the person she cared about the most faced the sword alone? She couldn't, and Su Yun couldn't. She knew, and Su Yun knew. The Wanhua realm shattered bit by bit, and layers of vines climbed up from the gigantic wooden sword sheath, extending towards the sword hilt of the evil sword. "You can't trap me. If you do this, it will only make me stronger." The evil sword's will was not afraid because of this. Instead, it was extremely excited. His entire body emitted circles of light, driving the evil sword to continue exerting force. A terrifying evil chi seeped out from the sword sheath and wrapped around the sword sheath. The sword sheath within the evil chi immediately corroded. Realm Master used his own power as the price, but was unable to completely seal the evil sword. The power of the evil sword was slowly breaking free from the sword sheath's suppression, becoming stronger bit by bit. Su Qing'er also found it more and more difficult. Her white face was covered in blood, her eyes were also bleeding, the ground beneath her feet was completely shattered. The gigantic evil sword was slowly pushing her into the Wanhua realm's boundary outline, but at that moment, the evil swords will suddenly felt pain. Immediately after, he was shocked to discover that his own strength had weakened by a bit. He opened his eyes wide and looked at the person in front of him, only to see that Su Yun seemed to have gone completely crazy. He opened his mouth and directly bit towards the evil sword's will. He bit and swallowed in big mouthfuls, ignoring everything else and shouting at the top of his lungs. What? The evil swords will sensed that something was wrong. Su Yun's body was like a big mouth, crazily devouring. He seemed to have ignited his last bit of will. The current Su Yun no longer had his own consciousness. He was like a walking corpse, starting to devour the evil sword's will. The evil sword's will hurriedly resisted, no longer daring to focus its attention on the evil sword. Instead, it focused on defending its will. As long as it could endure this period of time, it would win. However, he was shocked to discover that he was unable to resist Su Yun's devouring. Oh no! The vicious swords will suddenly realized. He had overlooked a very important thing, and that was that the current Su Yun possessed the highest level of willpower. He himself was already an existence that surpassed the ancestors. No one in the 10,000 realms had a consciousness stronger than him, and he had even devoured a few ancestors. His will was almost invincible, while the evil sword's will was merely the accumulation of the wills of the 10,000 realms. Most of them were extremely weak. In terms of numbers, Su Yun was completely defeated, but in terms of strength, the evil sword's will could not contend against Su Yun. Especially the current Su Yun, who did not care about anything else, crazily biting. Previously, he had relied on the consciousness of the 10,000 spirits that he had killed to replenish himself, but this time, the Wanhua realm that was full of vitality did not have anything, and did not replenish him. On the contrary, Su Yun had obtained an even stronger power through biting and devouring. Whiz! At this moment, a heaven-piercing sword hiss came from the top of the evil sword. The evil sword's will was stunned. It looked at the person in front of it, only to see a terrifying sword coming out from the person's body, directly piercing into his body, and crazily burning. This was the death sword's sword spirit. Su Yun had actually bitten a hole in his body, and then sent the death sword's sword spirit into the evil sword's will's body. Haha, have you given up on resisting? When the evil sword's will saw it clearly, it laughed uncontrollably. It immediately closed the gap and absorbed the death sword's will that had entered its body. However, just as he was about to digest it, he realized that the truth was not as he had imagined. The death sword's sword spirit was not absorbed by him, but instead started to burn itself, destroying its own will, and disintegrating the interior of the evil sword's will. How is this possible? The evil sword's will was stunned. However, in his line of sight, he saw a pair of ice-cold eyes that were wrapped in blood and fire. I've said it before, you can't control me, and I will control you. Su Yun opened his mouth and swallowed half of the evil sword's will in one gulp. At this moment, he had grown again, and the blood and fire that were about to be ignited were directly continued. You can't completely devour me. The evil sword's will immediately summoned countless fierce qis and wrapped them around his body, completely isolating him from the outside world. He could not absorb the consciousness energy outside, nor could he attack Su Yun. Similarly, Su Yun could not attack him. However, he did not continue to devour the evil sword's will. Instead, he turned around and rushed towards the evil sword's sword eye. This is bad. The evil swords will seem to have sensed something. Dragging the incomplete will, it quickly rushed towards the sword eye. However, just as it was about to enter the sword eye, a wave of blood fire sealed the sword eye. If the evil swords will wanted to pass through, it would have to consume a large amount of will energy by the blood fire. But at this juncture, what else could he hesitate? The blood fire immediately rushed into the sword eye. However, just as he passed through the blood fire and crashed into the evil sword's interior, a blood-red mouth suddenly appeared in front of his eyes and swallowed his incomplete will. No! The evil sword released a roar and continued to struggle, but it was surrounded by the will of blood and fire, frantically burning and devouring him. Adding that the current will was broken, it could not be compared to Su Yun, so no matter how much he struggled, he could not escape from Su Yun's mouth. It turned out that Su Yun had purposely lured the evil sword's will into the sword eye. He had set up the blood fire to consume the evil sword's evil qi, so that after he passed through the blood fire, he would not be able to use the evil qi to protect himself. In the end, you are just a will, not a human's thoughts, not a human. No matter how strong you are, how can you fight against the human heart? Su Yun completely swallowed the will into his stomach, using his own blood fire as a guide. He crazily burned and devoured the evil sword's will. The will of the evil sword struggled and churned in his stomach, as though his stomach was about to burst. He held on with all his might, and sat cross-legged at the sword eye of the evil sword, digesting and transferring the energy that he had swallowed into his stomach, turning it into his own power, increasing the strength of his own body of blood and fire. Just as the will was about to devour, the gigantic evil sword also stopped its bombardment. It pierced through the Wanhua realm's boundary line. Su Qing fell onto a piece of broken stone. She had already fainted. Her body was filled with blood marks. Her cultivation had been destroyed by more than half. The current her did not even have the strength of a spirit sage. "Let me out! Let me out!" The voice of the evil sword's will came out from Su Yun's stomach. It wanted to smash Su Yun's stomach, but the blood-fire body was too terrifying. As long as it touched it, it would burn itself. How could it dare to fight head-on? Su Yun's body was like a cage, trapping it inside and slowly digesting it. No, no! The voice of the evil sword's will slowly became softer, and with the replenishment of the evil sword's will, Su Yun's originally dim blood-fire body became more and more vigorous, faintly giving off a feeling of transcending the myriad worlds and jumping out of the cycle of reincarnation. Just like that, he sat cross-legged in front of the sword for an unknown period of time. The sword sheath formed by the realm tree that covered the body of the evil sword had already been corroded by the evil sword's qi, leaving only a piece of rotten wood attached to it. Su Qing opened her eyes with difficulty, looking at the gigantic sword body that was less than 10 meters away. Her pale face was filled with pain. The evil sword seems to have stopped? Su Qing's eyes revealed a trace of confusion. She suddenly raised her head, looked at the gigantic sword eye on the sword's body, and shouted with all her might, "Young master!" However, no one responded for a long time. After an unknown period of time, the evil qi of the evil sword gradually became sparse, the gigantic sword also stopped trembling, and the shattered Wanhua realm slowly regained its clarity. It was as if everything had become peaceful after the storm had passed. Su Qing slowly stood up, her eyes becoming extremely empty. This terrifying sword was standing right in front of him. It did not destroy all the realms as he had expected, but stopped here. The evil sword would never stop for no reason. Then, there was only one possibility. Su Yun. It must be Su Yun's doing. Su Qing's eyes were overflowing with tears of blood. She wanted to shout, but she could not see any trace of Su Yun. Crash! Just then, a strange phenomenon occurred at the sword eye of the evil sword. A dense and strange white sword intent suddenly surged out from the sword eye, like a spider web. It wrapped around the entire evil sword, and the evil sword's body started to tremble again. Su Qing's eyes widened, despair filling the depths of her eyes. Could it be that the silence just now was only temporary? The evil sword was not stopped? However, just as she was completely shocked by the scene in front of her, the few decaying realm tree wood on the evil sword suddenly peeled off by themselves. When the realm tree wood landed on the ground, it immediately released waves of golden light, and the sword eye also shot out a snow-white lustrous light that poured into the realm tree wood. Very quickly, the realm tree wood transformed into the appearance of a person, and upon closer inspection, it was actually the realm master. Seeing that, Su Qing immediately rushed over and carried Realm Master. Realm Master closed her eyes, her face was extremely pale, her breathing was very weak, her cultivation had already been completely lost. Su Qing immediately used the ancestors' qi to heal her, and not long after, Realm Master regained consciousness. Am I dead? Realm Master said weakly. You're fine. Su Qing hugged her tightly. I remember that my consciousness seemed to have been absorbed by the evil sword. Why didn't I die? Your consciousness was absorbed by the evil sword? Hearing that, Su Qing's entire body trembled. She raised her small face and looked at her seriously, then asked in a low voice, "Did young master save you?" Was it the young master who saved you? Is that right? She was a little agitated, but Realm Master shook her head helplessly. She was not clear about all of this, but not long after, the huge ominous sword moved again. Suddenly, countless streams of light surged out from the huge body of the ominous sword. It was like a meteor shower in the night sky, dazzling and gorgeous. The two women hugged each other and raised their heads to stare at this scene. They were both in a daze and had fallen into infatuation. After an unknown period of time, the strange phenomenon suddenly disappeared. Immediately after, the gigantic sword's sword body suddenly became smaller, and in an instant, it became the size of an ordinary sword, and beside the sword stood a person whose entire body was glowing with light. Su Yun. Young master. Seeing that, the two girls were overjoyed and shouted excitedly. Su Yun closed his eyes, holding onto the sword in his hand. He stood in the broken sky of the Wanhua realm, as though he was comprehending something. The light on his body gradually weakened, as though he had recovered his physical body, but he was clear that this was not his physical body. The current him was no longer the Su Yun from before. He had lost his physical body, and had also lost all of his cultivation, but he had also obtained a new body. The sword spirit of the evil sword. After devouring the evil sword's will, Su Yun replaced it and directly obtained control of the evil sword. The current evil sword was already used by him. Because of this, the myriad realms would be in his hands, and the so-called fate would finally be in his hands. However, Su Yun was not happy because of this. He opened his eyes, looked at the broken ground, and slowly descended. Su Qing threw herself over, and laid in Su Yun's embrace, crying nonstop. Even Realm Master let go of her usual modesty, and leaned on Su Yun's shoulder, as though she had found a warm harbor. Is everything over? Su Qing asked softly. It's all over. Su Yun raised his head and said with a smile. This sword? It's under my control. Su Yun raised the evil sword, and looked at the cold sword body, his expression grave and silent. The two girls looked at each other, and could feel the seriousness in Su Yun's heart. Young master, what's wrong? Su Qing asked. Su Yun hesitated for a moment, then suddenly gripped the sword hilt tightly. He revealed a seemingly relaxed smile to the two girls, then shook his head. I need to leave for a while. Where to? The two girls asked in unison. To find someone. He caressed Su Qing's face and then said gently to Realm Master, You guys wait for me in the true devil realm, okay? When can we return? Realm Master asked. Su Yun was silent. The two girls looked at him with shining eyes. After an unknown period of time, he smiled and turned around, flying into the distance. I will definitely come back. Wait for me. Compared to Ancestor Hao Yu and Ancestor Tian Lu, all of you are extremely lowly. Bright Moon and Heavenly Flow were the names of the two progenitors who had resisted the ominous sword. How dare you speak to Lord Primogenitor like this? Did they not want to live anymore? Get down here! Seeing that Su Yun was so arrogant, an immortal immediately shouted. But as soon as he finished speaking, a terrifying ferocious aura suddenly surged around his body and instantly swallowed him. When the ferocious aura ended, that person had already vanished without a trace, and not even a scrap of him remained. What? The surrounding immortals all stood up in unison, looking at this scene in shock. The scene immediately boiled over. The primogenitor in the center was even more shocked. Ferocious chi? This was the aura of a ferocious sword. Who are you? The primogenitor roared. I am the new ruler of the multiverse. You should have heard of my name. I am Su Yun. Now I want you to do something, and you must cooperate with me. Su Yun said indifferently. Su Yun? Hearing that, the ancestor was overwhelmed with shock. How could no one know of this name? I never thought that it would be you. Su Yun. Why are you here? What's going on outside? You don't need to care about what's going on outside. Now, I want you to offer up all of your cultivation and use the power of your heart origin as a guide to take out the stone of life. Su Yun continued to speak indifferently. But as soon as he said that, the scene immediately exploded into an uproar. Some people did not understand what the stone of life was, but the ancestor and the people around him had heard of the stone of life like thunder. Stone of life? That was the stone of heavenly Tao. The birth of a fate envoy would definitely be illuminated by the stone of heavenly Tao. This stone only existed in fate, and it wouldn't easily appear in front of others. Unless one summoned it with boundless power, no one would do such a thing, not even the primogenitor. Su Yun, if you want us to forcefully summon the stone of life, other than using our own cultivation as the price, there is no other way. If we do as you say, we will all become cripples. Do you think we can agree to it? The ancestor shouted. You have no choice. Su Yun stared at the ancestor and said coldly. You are just a single person, how dare you be so arrogant? Another immortal was unconvinced. Su Yun was completely forcing them. I will only give you 3 breaths of time to consider. After 3 breaths of time, if you do not agree, I will destroy the world. Su Yun closed his eyes, there was no room for discussion, and every word he said, in the ears of these people, caused their bodies to turn cold, and they felt unbearable pain. Destroy the world? There were so many experts here, could it be that Su Yun did not care? But just then, the ancestor spoke. He lowered his head and was silent for a moment, then said, It is said that the stone of life is the stone of fate. It has always been hidden in the fate of the myriad worlds. It already has a spirit. It can control other people's fate at will, and destroy their fate. It can even use the power of fate to change other people's fate. It is supreme, it is the true ruler. Su Yun, what exactly do you want to do? Do you want us to help you summon the stone of life? No need to waste words, quickly do it. Su Yun said in a low voice. They were forced into a corner, no one here wanted to die, even if their cultivation was gone, it was at least better than losing their lives, and the ancestor was the same. In fact, there were not many great immortals here, and there was only one ancestor. In terms of strength, this power was nothing, but this ancestor was completely different from the others, because he was an ancestor who was proficient in the art of divination. There was only one such person in the 10,000 worlds, and it was precisely because he predicted that the evil sword would launch a second world destruction, that he created such a world to defend against it. But the matter of the evil sword was too big, he was unable to completely predict it, so he did not know about this world, and was unable to provide him with absolute protection. If not for Su Yun successfully stopping the evil sword, it was only a matter of time before this world was destroyed. The primogenitor started to set up the formation, and the immortals cooperated. Everyone used the formation to transfer power to the primogenitor. The primogenitor stood in the sky and used his small world as a guide to shatter it. He extracted the purest primogenitor power and spread it in the sky, guiding the most mysterious existence that wandered the fate of all worlds. A human-shaped stone that flickered with a rainbow-colored light slowly floated out from the void. Its halo was incomparably dazzling, its chi was extremely profound, it was indescribably mystical. This stone of life had existed since the desolate era, and it was said that it was born together with the evil sword, but it was not as terrifying as the evil sword. When the stone appeared, all the immortals below knelt down and kowtowed, even the ancestor did the same. But Su Yun leaped up and landed in front of the stone of life. He held on to the evil sword with one hand and stared coldly at the stone. "You should know the reason why I summoned you out," he said coldly. "The evil sword's spirit is the transformation of the evil sword's own soul, regardless of whether it is Ling Qing Yu or the will that you devoured. They are all the evil sword's own. Ling Qing Yu is already dead. Even if you subdue the evil sword, you cannot revive her. This is determined by fate." A hollow and emotionless voice came out from the stone of life. "A person's life and death, how can it be determined by fate?" Chapter 1569. The 10,000 realms had been attacked, and the immortal realm was no longer there, but this did not affect the development of the 10,000 realms. Although Su Yun had become the sword spirit of the evil sword, and had become the ruler of the world, he had never had any interest in dominating the world. After all of this was over, Su Yun returned to the true devil realm, and there were still many people waiting for him there. However, Su Yun did not plan to stay here. Instead, he brought Su Qinger, Hu Qianmei, Realm Master, Long Xianli and the others back to the Sky Martial Continent. No matter how strong he was, at least he had walked out from here, and there was a knot in his heart. The 10,000 worlds regained their peace. Everyone was glad that they were still alive. They all knew that the person who stopped all of this was Su Yun. Unknowingly, they had already regarded this peerless person as a god in their hearts. No one dared to go against him. Even the ancestors were like ants in front of him. The immortal world had already been destroyed, the spirit realm had also collapsed, and even the Beiyang had been shattered. The head of the myriad realms had become the Wanhua realm. Xiao Chuo was still in the primal chaos of the past, and this was the immortal world that had been destroyed by the evil sword. She hoped to be able to search for the traces left behind by the powerful immortals who had died, or the wealth that had been lost. Of course, not only the immortal world, the entire myriad realms would become a place for her to travel and cultivate. She would never be satisfied, and she would never stop pursuing the martial way. A ray of light suddenly flickered in the primal chaos. Seeing that, Xiaochua's eyes lit up, and she immediately flew over. However, just as she approached the light, a familiar figure appeared before her eyes. The light was merely an accessory on the figure's clothes. But seeing this figure, Xiao Chuo was still extremely surprised. "Why are you here?" Xiao Chuo sized up the person in front of him, his eyes still filled with a strong fighting spirit. "I'm not here to fight with you." The person in front of her noticed her fighting spirit and said with a smile, "I know you're not here to fight with me, and the current me, I'm afraid I can't even win against a single finger of yours, but Su Yun, I believe that sooner or later, I will definitely defeat you, and when I step onto the peak of the martial way, I will definitely be able to do it," Xiao Chua said firmly. "The title of Valkyrie is not just for show. I will look forward to that day." Su Yun smiled calmly. "Then what are you doing here?" "I'm getting married." 7 days later. "With whom?" "You'll know when you get there." Su Yun extended his hand, a circle of lustrous light aura appeared on his palm, Following that, a scroll appeared, he handed it over, and Xiao Chua accepted it.